Da 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 da. Ba-da-dum-bum-bum. Boo. Ba ba. Good morning. Oh my god, I need so much coffee. I'm so asleep. I don't know if this is going to be a great show because I'm so tired. Oh, I'm so confused. Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Neil. Good morning. How are you? I hope you're well. Ah, I'm so confused with the economics of our world. I wish I had paid more attention. Actually, I wish I had been not so tied up with boys and alcohol in college. I'm really regretting that now. I really ruined. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just fucking drank all the way through my fucking college career. It was just terrible. That was the beginning of my real alcoholism, and I regret that so much. I regret that so much. Hi, Neil. I do. I really do. I regret it. I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had paid more attention, and I wish I had thought more. You know, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to go to like Vassar or something and for my undergrad and then go to law school and do all this stuff. And I never did any of that. Hi, Badger. Obviously. I went to work right when I was in college because I got an internship. And so I went right to work after college. And I really wish I had not necessarily gone to get a master's degree. I'm not sure about that. But I wish I had paid more attention to like the fundamentals. Because now I struggle. I know that's in the past. I have tried. I've tried to do some good things. I don't know how good they've been, but I've tried. I've tried to be helpful and not hurtful. Let's put it that way. But I just wish I could wrap my brain around some of these concepts, about monetary policy and about like the real impact of the tariffs. Like they're really trying to do a boondoggle on us right now. They really are. They're really trying to do so much to obfuscate what is going to happen to people's day-to-day lives. And I'm afraid they're going to in some ways get away with it and get away with it only in the fact that it takes people so long to figure out how their lives have been changed and not improved, if you will, that uh, that there's nothing we can do about it, and we're always chasing accountability. I just am very frustrated. I'm frustrated with myself more than any. Well, no, that's not true. I'm frustrated with the government more than me, but I don't know. I'm really racking my brain, trying to listen to these guys and like pick out what is most important and, all these kinds of different things. And it's just, they make it so fucking difficult to understand exactly what's happening. It's fascinating to me. Wish I could stay, Neil. I have to drive to an out of town funeral. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Neil. I hope you have a good drive and my condolences to for your loss and for others. I hope your drive goes well. You messed up in school too, Jane? I mean, maybe, I don't know. It was the 80s. It was the 80s. Who could go to college in the 80s? I wanted to go to art school. My heart wasn't in it. I like law too. LOL. I really wanted to take a year off after high school. I was going to be a nanny for my aunt in California, but my dad vetoed that. Oh, my parents wanted us to get the best education we could, go to work for a big corporation, move to the suburbs, and have 2.2 children. Did you do it, Jim? Did you do it? Well, Neil, we'll see you later. Bye bye, babe. Good morning, butterflies. Good morning, Jane and Scott and Neil are here, and Jim Nalgren too. Um, yeah. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. Oh well, skis. That's right. That's the way it is. That now they have to take us like we are, Jane. Crotchety old biddies. Is that what we are? Are we old biddies, Jane? I don't know. I'm not sure how old you are, but I think you and I are similar age. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, I don't want to know. I don't want to know how old you are. Don't tell me. Anyway, good morning. Happy Thursday. Oh my god, do you know what I'm doing today? Oh my god. I'm so scared. I'm going to the dentist for a deep cleaning. Yeah, we're young biddies. That's right. Thank you, Jane. Thanks. Hello. I'm going to the dentist for a deep cleaning. Oh, I don't know what that is. I don't like it. Maybe they just called it that. My dentist is weird. They don't watch the show, but yeah, I have to go to the dentist. I'm not looking forward to it, but it'll be fine. It's a good. I like going to the dentist actually. I'm just not in the mood for like pain and keeping my mouth open for a long time. I don't want to keep my mouth open. They have the stuff that will numb your teeth. Ask for it. I'm going to do that. Badger, I want it all. Whatever they've got, hand it over. I'm going to bite them. Yeah. I will if they hurt me. That's not true. I won't do that. Well, anyway, good morning. Morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope your night was good. I hope you're looking forward to a good day. Oral hygiene is paramount. It is not in just your opinion, it is true. A lot comes from your teeth. Heart disease and shit like that. You had one that would give you gas for cleaning. I hope this is the same kind of one. I sort of did. I went to work for IBM, but it was boring as hell, so I went off on a different route. Blue suits, white shirts, and red ties. I know. Yeah, IBM had that uniform too, right? Didn't they have a uniform? I think, as I recall back in the day. Like the suit was a uniform, whatever. Anyway, it didn't work out as well. One good morning is enough. It's not that good. Oh, what's the matter? What happened, Carla? Good morning, Carla. One good morning. Oh, I say what you're saying. One good morning is enough. It's not that good. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready for the teeth to be clean. Um, so I have a mishmash of stuff for us this morning. Let me just check one thing because la 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 la. Um. Oh boy. Okay. Okay. Well, yes, I just have a whole mess and mishmashi mess of stuff today. Just kidding. Not a morning person. I get it, Carla. Don't worry about it. Non-welcome person. I am not high. Are you high enough yet? That's cute. He would then say, "Are you high enough yet?" And you'd say, "No, sir. May I have another?" I like the idea of something that numbs your teeth. That's interesting. Man, they have made some real strides in dentistry. I didn't even know about that. I've never been offered that. Jesus. Oh. All right. Well, good morning and welcome to Wake and Bake with Lolo. I'm Lolo. Only up early for Lolo and the lounger community. Right, Scott? That's right. It's just because I can't sleep. I feel like I am a morning person. I'm definitely more alive in the morning than I am at night. I still can stay up late, though, unfortunately. I wish I was one of those persons that was like, I can get up early and then I'll go to bed early. No, I go to bed late, don't get enough sleep. Um, but I thought what we could do. Michael and Dell had a better day today. Good morning, Paulina. Not gonna lie, I like the laughing gas. I kind of think I did too, although I don't like to say things that are stupid, right? I'm sure I say stupid stuff. My gastroenterologist was really cute, like really handsome when I was living in New York. And I got a colonoscopy from him, you know? And I'm pretty sure I told him I thought he was really cute when I was half in and half out of my head, which is an interesting thing with someone who's about to stick a camera up your butt. I'm just saying. That's my story. I'm sticking to. He was so handsome. Oh my god. I'm sure he was happily married, so I'm, whatever. But man, he was so handsome. Oh well. Missed opportunities. What kind of dentist puts cameras up that end? I want that kind of dentist. I wonder. No, I'm not going to say it. That's more for the stand-up set, not for this. Not for this early in the morning. Jane, does he do glow sticks? No, but that's a great idea. Good morning, Karen. How are you, darling? Oh my God. We're talking about colonoscopies and handsome and dentists for some reason. Colonoscopies and dentists. I had to pay extra for the camera up the butt. This is what kind of day it's going to be, folks. Welcome to the show. Side business. Oh my God. Oh, oh my God. You guys are making me laugh. Oh, Uranus jokes and go. I know. Times are hard. You got to make money. Yeah, exactly. I thought I was holding myself back, but I forgot who I was with. Wait, where's Lee? Morning is off to a roaring start. Rain created havoc with pool. Oh no, garden and basement on top of the tariff crap. Lee, I'm so sorry. This is a poopy Thursday for you. I'm so sorry. Well, come in and talk about. We're going to talk about butts in here, so you can come. When you need a break from all of that, come on in and talk about. I had a colonoscopy at the same time as the one through the mouth. Now they let me send my poop in a box. What? Through the mouth? What, you mean an endoscopy or something? Yes. Okay, listen, Paulina. I have a colonoscopy and an endoscopy booked for September. Might as well do it all. Get checked, my friends. I agree. Get checked. And listen, the thing is I think I also had an endoscopy at a moment where I had a colonoscopy. I think those two things happened. Oh, really? Okay, yeah. I was just talking in the beginning about economics and the fact that I wish I had paid more attention to what economics are about. Yeah, I know. I had an endoscopy and then they gave me a colonoscopy. Why is that? I think it was to do, I don't know what it was. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember why I had an endoscopy. Did they find any missing glow plugs? I have no idea what they found up there. They wouldn't talk about it. I don't know. It was kind of odd. Butts are funny. Thank you, Jane. Butts are funny. I'm sorry. They're like the great equalizer. Okay? They're like the great equalizer. Yeah. So Max Ron Varro was on TV this morning saying Schlump could get the Nobel Prize for economics. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's too much. Well, speaking of people that should uh get a colonoscopy, people that feel like a colonoscopy. My insurance wants to give me $60 to do the colon screening. Oh wow, that's really cool. They all really kiss his butt. I know. And here's the thing. And as I was saying in the beginning, I struggle so much with the concepts of economics, right? When something goes up, the other thing goes down. When, something is this and then the other thing is this. Because, like, for example, I was listening to one of the former Fed chairs from one of the Federal Reserves on Squawk Box or something this morning. And he was basically saying, there's no reason not to, that I think what they're trying to say is that inflation is not as great a concern to him as I guess employment. Like I think that what is the two mandates for whatchamacallit is uh keeping prices. I don't know how does Jerome Powell put it? Like keeping inflation low and employment high, right? I think that's where he's kind of like he looks for his sweet spot. And one guy from the former Fed, a former Fed chair, or not chair, but former Federal Reserve captain or whatever they call themselves, was saying this morning that it wouldn't if Jerome Powell, and it made sense, and that's why it kind of confused me. If Jerome Powell thinks that he's going to lower rates in like September or something, why not do it now? Now, I think the wisdom has been in the past that you don't knee jerk react to something. And for Jerome Powell, I think the way he explains it is that there's no reason, there's no trigger in the economy right now to lower rates, and it would be important to uh, look at that later on as the effects of the tariffs really hit home, and that makes sense to me. But then also this guy this morning, the former Fed person, was like not like a Fed chair, but just one of the governors. That's what they're called, governors. What he was saying is, if you're going to cut it in September, or you're saying that, why not just go ahead and cut it now? You don't have the employment issue, and you have inflation that went down in the first quarter, came back up, I guess, for the second quarter, and so it's kind of evened out to a net zero, basically, in the big scheme of things. Uh, I don't know. It was just really interesting. I don't think there are any deals on paper, and that's another thing. Is like, at what point does Congress approve the tariff deals? And yet, so what goes into effect tomorrow? You know what I'm saying? The latest deal is with South Korea. Yeah. Um. Oh yeah, I'd rather do the colon check poop box. Yeah. No, I would. I hate drinking that stuff. It makes me sick to my stomach. It makes me vomit. Uh. They pump air in there. That's right. They do. The general public hears the big money and thinks it's great when it's all BS. I've been dealing with it since 2018. It's ridiculous. Yeah, Lee. Here's the other thing. I think, and I don't want to oversimplify this, but I'm trying to oversimplify it just to kind of get it straight in my head. So I can be corrected. But the way I'm interpreting all of this is that the gamble that the administration is making is that this is the period of time where they need to, the period of time where you're actually trying to onshore a lot of production and kind of wean people, not wean people off, but just cut them off from kind of more global supply chains, and almost like a shock to the system, right? So if this administration shocks this system, are they just banking on the fact that they can lie their way through the painful time until they perceive that there won't be as much pain because the onshoring of manufacturing will be, underway, if you will? Right. Okay. Companies won't move production due to tariffs on machines. What is that? I probably need to ask you about that tomorrow. My brother's in retail. All his vendors have added surcharges. See, and I think that that's what is going to happen. I think it's actually going to make day to day life much more difficult. I don't know. I was just looking for information on kind of supply chain data because I haven't really looked at that as well. Um, but here's the thing, Lee, is that business leaders on the face of it seem to be okay, or at least they're not saying anything. Um, that like they're acting as if this will be kind of a I don't know. I mean, I'm having a really hard time wrapping my brain around it. So I'm trying. I guess that's the thing. I'm just trying. Anyway, uh, speaking of that, let me tell you, let me uh, let me share some videos with you that I pulled for us this morning. La 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 la. Well, first, I think we should start out with some Mike Lindell. I'm in the unlucky every 5 years group. Oh yeah. Corporate leaders are not believing what is happening. I'll try. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Lee, because I think I kind of see what people are trying to do. They're trying, and you know what? I hear this a lot with the international reporting. I was listening to a podcast yesterday from Deutsche Welle about this issue, and there was this kind of resignation by world leaders, like Ursula and other people. It's almost like a resignation that this is what we have to deal with. So we're going to try and make it as least painful as uh, I have a clip on that, Max. Um, as least as painless as possible, because it's almost as if they've done the calculus and they can't overcome the Trump administration. And I think the only people that are really winning right now are the people like the tech bro oligarchs like Sam Altman, Elon, Peter Thiel, uh, other people who are being encouraged to then build those large uh, data farms and things like that. I don't know. I'm really yeah. Anyway, Justin Wolfers pointed out Wall Street is expecting tacos, so holding steady. But Main Street is seeing orders being canceled. Oh, see, that's really interesting. Oh, Scott, you're so. GP got a membership. Clay got a membership. Sassy got a membership. I don't know who Rush Monkey is. I don't know who Nacho WS is. Meowing Star, you got one. Oh, working lab traffic. I don't know that person. Melissa Ellen, I don't know who you are, but hey, Summer Burrows, Summer, Hot Mess Summer got one. Talk your ish. Tammy, you got one too. Yay. Oh, that's so cool. Thank you, Scott. Oh, you're so cute. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Oh, we need a song. What do we got? What do we got for songs these days? I want to do something a little different. What do we got? Where's my good songs? Do 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 do. I can't read any of this. La 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 la. Oh, here we go. Oh, I like this one. Okay, here we go. This is for you, Scott. Now I want bread pudding again. Bread pudding? That's so sweet. You're so kind. Okay, here we go. This is for you, Scott. It's going out to you. Buying memberships for the lounge. That's right. That's Scott, and he's buying those memberships. Thank you, Scott. You're so cute. I adore you. Thank you so much. I know Tama's, aka bread pudding. Oh yeah. Is she really calls herself bread pudding? Come on now. I didn't mind the air. I got out before it was time to go back home. I'm sure my bestie who took me home was happy about that. Yeah. Yeah, it tends to work itself out. Um, that's so great. Thank you, Scott. Oh my gosh, you're so kind. And look at all our friends who got memberships. That's so cool. I love it. I love that our friends get memberships. That's so sweet. Thank you, Scott. You're a major dude. You're a major dude. Any major dude will tell you. Oh, any major dude will tell you. All right. But you know what? You know what I have? I know. There's you guys are so supportive of this show. I just am so grateful. I can't even tell you. I can't even tell you. So thank you. Uh let's take a look. Let's see. What do I want to do first? Ah, gosh, I just don't know. I think we should just do GP stole my membership again. um, I know this is going to be painful. Oh wow, what is this? Oh, this is Intermountain Christian Newscast. Wait a minute, let me tell you what we got for you right now. Rather be kind than not. It's that simple. Scott, you're a love. You are a love. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's wonderful. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, this should be good, folks. This should be good. I'm telling you right now, look at this man. He's bathed in the blood. He's bathed in the blood. He's Dr. M. Anthony Harper. And the M's for macho. That's right, it's macho. So welcome, Mr. Anthony Harper. Dr. M. Anthony Harper, excuse me. Okay, what do you got for us today, Dr. Harper? What are you doing? Tell us
Dr.
all.
Anthony Harper here. Blessed to
Okay.
be with Mr. Mike Lindell.
Oh my
He's with My
God.
Pillow. He's got some good news for you, our audience.
Why are
So,
you
Mr.
sitting
Lindell,
so
thank you
low,
for
Mr.
joining me
Harper?
and our audience. What
Bathed
is
in
the
the
good news that you
blood.
wanted to share mainly with our audience?
Well, as everybody
Ah,
knows, I've been fighting to secure our elections for about four and a
ah.
half years now, and My Pillow and myself have been the most attacked company probably in history. This
No.
goes back to lawfare, where they sued the machine companies,
Look at
voting
the
machine
lighting.
companies, sued.
Look at the crack addict lighting. Uh 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 a Kindle in front of him. And it's uplighting his chin. That's great. Great.
Over 100 individuals and platforms like
Oh, he
media
had a big
platforms
win
and one
yesterday.
company, My Pillow.
No, he's
But
not in the
during that
White
time,
House.
there was also where I had the cyber symposium in the summer of 2021 in August, where I invited all these cyber guys to show the evidence
I
I had
remember.
there. And
We used to carry onions in our belts. I used to be somebody. That's right. Back in the day, I was the king of anti-election integrity.
I invited media and politicians. And what came out of there was a very, I'll call it, it was corrupt.
I will say he's not skinny. He's not eating. He's certainly eating.
It was this guy named Zeidman had went after this $5 million, which all the other cyber guys said yes, this data
Oh,
is
okay.
from the 2020
All
election.
right, all right, all right.
And
I
to
know
make
what
a
this
long
is.
story short,
I'll let him tell the story too, but let me tell you it in English. In English, this story, he's some evangelical podcaster, Lee, in some random church in the middle of fucking nowhere. Um, so what he's talking about is, if you remember, which I'm sure you do, back in the day at the Symposium, the first one he had made a challenge. If you can break through, wait, if you can, I think it was if you can break into our systems, I'll give you $5 million or something like that. Do you remember that? Do you remember that? I didn't hear that. Oh wait, maybe I did hear that. I don't know if it was St. Paul that I heard about, but I thought I heard about a city having a cyber attack. No, I can't recall. I have to get it together. Okay, darling, Lee, focus. We will release you from this hell of Mike Lindell. I hope you come back. I hope you come back. Um, if you recall, he made that challenge where if you can break into my systems or something, yeah, 5 million, break my code, yeah, 5 million. Well, one of these guys who was on Twitter at the time, I used to follow him and talk to him about Pillow Guy once in a while. Did it? He challenged him, and he got in there to be breaking. I'm laughing too much. Yes, yes. Well, so he had to pay the guy, right? There was a court case because he said, I'm not going to pay that. And of course, the guy was like, oh, yeah, you are. And so he sued him. Mike lost, but then he appealed. And according to this news story, he won his appeal. He does not, at this point, have to pay the $5 million. I don't know if Alan Dershowitz was the appeals judge or Emil Bovee, who's now an appeals judge, if you can fucking believe it. Yeah, so anyway, I haven't gotten the full story on why the appeal worked and what kangaroo court approved that, but here we are. He'll tell us,
He
I'm
went
sure.
to a
It'll
binding
make perfect
arbitration,
sense.
and it was, I think it was
Oh, he
very
went to
corrupt. There were
arbitration.
three members on the panel, and they changed the rules of the contest and said that I owed $5 million. And in April of 2023, that came out in worldwide news. Mike,
Okay. Nobody changed the rules of his contest. He got caught. In fact, I have the clips. I know I do. I'd have to go and search them out and kind of put them together, but I'm going to tell you, I might just do that. Well, right now he doesn't have to pay, but I have a feeling that's not going to stick around forever.
Lindell's that evidence is no good. He owes $5 million, and they used that as a narrative to any time I was doing stuff. Well, you don't have any evidence anyway. You lost in court.
No, actually, it's because you have no evidence. No one just said that because you made this bet and you lost the bet. Nobody is saying that. You don't have any evidence because you don't have any evidence.
Well, we took that to district court and appealed it because normally binding arbitration is binding arbitration. The
Yeah,
district
so
court then said they did something wrong there, but we're not going to overturn it. And my attorney said, Mike, it's 1 in millions that if you went to federal court that they would overturn something like this. And I said, it's the truth. No, we're going forward. We're going to keep fighting and going forward. Well, we did that last November, brought it to the 8th district in the 8th circuit in Minnesota before these federal judges. And just 2 days ago, you guys have made national news. We won. We won. And it is so significant that we won because now, as the president and from the top down, and my team's on the ground from the bottom up to get to the bottom of the 2020 election. To get these, you remember he's going to put in a special prosecutor to go back and get to the bottom of it and get these people held accountable, and then also going forward, his executive order to get to paper ballots and counted. We need this to show people, say, hey, here's all this evidence that shows that our elections are being manipulated and controlled by the uniparty and by other people or by the deep state globalists. And so this was so significant. I was so happy, I couldn't tell you. And sure enough, all the media in the world kept calling me up, and the stories all came out. And it's kind of changed too, because they actually put good pictures of me for a change, and they actually said positive things instead of spinning it. Of course, we don't have Fox and Newsmax are silent about it, and which is to be expected because they will never put out of being cowards. They will never report anything about the elections. So.
Okay, Mr. Liddell, was Dominion voting machines, that company, were they suing you as well?
Yeah, Dominion, Smartmatic, and they did as well, and they for billions of dollars. And they now one of that case too, about a month ago, the one with one of the Dominion, one of their affiliates, My Pillow won that. So where these are back-to-back wins, I believe, and My Pillow came out of that 100% vindicated. Now this was so important too, because imagine everybody, if you're an advertiser. I just told this to the New York Times and stuff when they were in the last couple of days talking to them. I go, imagine when you guys, you have an advertiser in the paper and something said that they can that somebody sues for defamation or some crazy lawsuit, but you also sue the advertisers because or you're on a TV show and some host says something that gets sued and you sue the advertiser. This would have set a precedent. If My Pillow would have lost, nobody would want to advertise anywhere on any station or on any place where you're questioning not just elections, you could be questioning anything. And so that was a huge win. Now the other cases, they're out there. They said this has all been lawfare. There's one for 1.3 billion against My
What's this,
Pillow,
Lisa?
myself, and because I choose to use my First Amendment right of free speech to question these machine companies and these that control our elections. By the way, we pay for these machines out of our taxpayer dollars. I mean,
They
if you
don't really
can't question
care,
if
meowing
you have a
star.
problem with your bank account and you're going, wait a
They
minute,
don't
my
care
balance different.
unless
You
it's
go to
not
your bank,
him.
what's the first thing they do? They look inside the
Uniparty
computers and
deepfake
say,
globalist.
oh, here, we found it. We found the problem. But these machine companies say, no, no, no. Even if you ask to look, we're going to sue you. And that's what they did.
No,
They
that's
tried
not
to
true.
suppress our voices
No,
4 years ago, but it didn't
no,
work.
they
We're
didn't.
yelling to the top of the rooftops.
Well, this is also related to some really good news for President Trump, about all the evidence that was against him about there's some treasonous behavior on the part of Obama as well.
Right,
This is
right.
good news for both of you.
What?
And
What does
it was great
Obama
to
have
see
to
you at
do
the
with
White
it?
House yesterday.
Yeah.
And you've got quite a busy schedule. You've got
Huh?
some good news here, and a lot of people
Yeah.
are praying for you. And
Well,
for
thank you.
Nacho.
And I want to tell everybody, keep the faith. You guys got the prayers, we need the prayers, but we've got the president and I talk, he put out an executive order to secure our elections. He wants to get like 132 countries have banned the electronic voting machine. We want to be the 133rd country. I mean, Argentina did it 2 years ago, freed their whole country and got rid of these machines because one judge said, hey, they got to go. And so this is great. These are mini victories, but we need to get to the finish line here and get rid of them. I always say, melt them down and turn them into prison bars. We recycle. And so I'm just telling everybody, if you guys want to check it out, you can go to mypillowtrial.com. You can get updated there and everything. And
I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, was the KKK all these? Yeah, buzzword. Yeah, see, here's the thing about Mike Lindell, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a Mike Lindell expert, if you will. Not recently because I really haven't followed. But this is what I remember now about Mike Lindell after hearing him talk for a few minutes. He never makes any sense. There is so much nonlinear thought in his head, and not the good kind of nonlinear, because sometimes nonlinear thinking is great, and I love nonlinear thinking. I do it all the time. But you can never get just a straight story on this is what happened and da 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 da. Yeah, he lost the defamation case in Colorado, right? And that's the other thing. He didn't talk about that case. So I don't know, Mike Lindell, you're going to hell. That's the thing. So I it's almost like triggering to hear him again because you can just see that he never actually says anything that is of consequence, of some kind of factual basis that you can follow the logic. You can never follow his logic. I guarantee you he's in a $30 a night motel room. He probably is, Jim. I thought he was going to die, but he didn't die. He didn't die. It didn't happen. And then I saw this morning. I mean, I'm gonna watch it, but I don't know. This guy's kind of scaring me. This is something from Adam Schiff that came out this morning. And yeah, you did. You did. He's sharing a van down by the river with Rudy next to Beth, Cash Patel, and Angry Dan. Bingo Bongo? I guess, do you all know any? No, I guess I don't. Yeah, exactly. It does look like a hotel room. I think you're right. I think it is actually. Okay, so what is Adam Schiff talking about when he's saying the president is trying to rig the 2026 election? This scared me, so I haven't listened to it yet. So let's see what he says.
How. We've always known that Donald Trump was a cheater. Here he is again this week. That's right, he's a cheater on the golf course, but much more significant, he wants to cheat in the 2026 elections. Here is one way how Donald Trump intends to rig those elections against the American people and deprive millions of people of their legitimate votes. In Texas, Donald Trump has been pressuring the legislature and the governor to go into a special session so that they can gerrymander the Texas districts before the midterms. So what does that involve? Well, every 10 years there's a census done, a counting of the people in the country, and there's a process called redistricting, where they redraw the congressional lines of every House district so that each House member represents about the same number of the American people. In my former House district in California, for example, I represented about 750,000 people. But as the population changes over a decade, as people move into states or move out of states, those lines have to be redrawn or reapportioned. That happens just once in a decade. But Donald Trump is desperately worried about losing control of the House of Representatives in the midterms if it's a fair election. So Donald Trump wants to try to rig the game by having Texas do something very, very unusual, and that is engage in a mid-decade or mid-census redistricting. So the legislature can go into a special session, redraw the lines in the hope of drawing Democrats out of the Texas House delegation and drawing lines that will elect more Republicans. Now, reportedly, the Texas governor, Abbott, didn't want to go along with this plan. Republicans in the Texas legislature didn't want to go along with this plan. Republicans in the Texas congressional delegation didn't want to go along with this plan because if they try to create more Republican seats in Texas, they might eliminate Democrats, or they just might lose some of the incumbent Republicans because they'll have to take Republicans out of those safe districts and move them into Democratic districts. So there was opposition in Texas to this idea of trying to rig the game in Texas. But nevertheless, all it took was one call from Donald Trump to Governor Abbott, and the governor changed tune, and so did the legislature. So they're going into a special session with this redistricting in mind. Now, Democrats are not standing still for this, not in Texas and not elsewhere. In Texas, people are showing up at hearings to voice their extreme upset and concern over this effort to rig the game in Texas. Here is one Texan showing up at one of those redistricting hearings in Texas.
Mr. Chair, it's ironic and kind of sad to me that we're here because I've watched 2 hearings already where your colleagues have asked you about the existence of this committee, and you've simply passed the buck and said, because there's a letter, this is what we have to do. And you said this morning, or at the start of this meeting, that we had to follow the rules. Your response to the governor when he put this on the agenda should have been 4 words, because this is Texas, right? This is the land of Six Flags. This is the land of Whataburger. This is the land of Shinerbach. You should have said 4 words to the governor: don't mess with Texas. And your answer to the Department of Justice, instead of asking the Department of Justice to come testify, your answer to the Department of Justice should have been 4 words about our maps. Come and take them.
But it's not just members of the Texas public, it's Texas legislators too, who are speaking out. They recently went to California to meet with Governor Newsom to talk about how they're trying to rig the game in Texas and what California may do. Indeed, Texas legislators even considering such extreme remedies as fleeing the legislature so that they can deny the legislature in Texas a quorum during the special session and prevent this rejiggering of the lines from taking place. Now, one of the other items on the agenda for the special session is an effort to address some of the flooding in Texas. So it's unclear whether fleeing the state is going to be an adequate or successful response to this terrible idea of trying to redraw the lines mid-decade. But it does show the extraordinary degree to which Texas legislators and people around the country are deeply concerned, fearful of this effort to try to rig the midterm elections. Now, one of the false justifications that Texans are using for this special session and this rejiggering of the lines comes from, of course, Donald Trump's Justice Department, which, after Trump badgered the state to go into session, sent a letter to provide some patina of respectability over this completely illegitimate process by claiming that somehow Texas's current map is unconstitutional. That is just a farce. No one believes this, but it just goes to show how the president, his enablers at the Justice Department are all in cahoots to try to weaken our democracy and rig the rules of the game. But we're not sitting down in the midst of this fight, and we can't. So California is considering going into its own special session to put its own measure on the ballot, to do its own mid-census reapportionment, because in California, we can draw a lot of Republicans out of their seats if Texas takes this destructive action. Here's Governor Newsom on the subject.
He just made a call to the governor of Texas saying, in this case, not find me the votes, but find me new seats to rig the game. If we want to still be in this game, we need to disabuse ourselves, disenthrall ourselves of the status quo in the past. We have got to enter a new mindset, and we've got to get back on this playing field, and we've got to do it with the kind of vigor that our kids and grandkids deserve, that liberty and freedom deserves this moment. The founding fathers deserve the principles that define the best of Roman Republic and Greek democracy. That's on the line unless we stand the line and stand guard of this democracy, and that means we got to go on offense.
Now in California, it's complicated by the fact that California did the right thing. California, by a ballot measure, established an independent commission that draws the congressional lines in a neutral way. It has been a very successful process in California, so we'd likely have to go back to the ballot to redraw the lines in the middle of the decade. It is possible the legislature could try to redraw the lines on its own, but that would be subject to court challenge, and it's unclear how that court case would turn out. And in California, we could potentially change more seats than Texas. So Texas may rue the day they go down this road, and I say that because Texas already gerrymandered their maps. Texas has maps that are already skewed towards Republicans. California has pretty neutral maps. If we end up redrawing the lines in California, we can eliminate probably 4, 5, or 6 Republicans out of a delegation that only has 9 in total. But it's not just California that is thinking about fighting back. Here's the governor of Illinois, Pritzker, on the subject.
If they're going to cheat, that's not a proper way to act, we're all going to have to band together to try to address that, at least to try to stop them by letting them know that if we were doing what they were doing, that in fact we would counterbalance, indeed take control of the Congress.
And it's not just Illinois and California that are thinking of fighting back.
It is.
It is also New York
and it's to rig
and New Jersey.
It's really to rig state legislatures, Grace Lisa, so that they can control state. It's really around both the electoral map, but also just like the state legislatures and being able to pack the state legislature with one party over another. And that's really what it comes down to, which is ridiculous. Yeah. Leaving Crockett without a district in Texas, Scott. That I did not know that. That's ridiculous. It's really bad. I mean, I can't tell you, like, I think the overwhelm right now is that there are just so many fronts that are being attacked. It is a death by 1,000 cunts. It really is. Like, it just is. The Honesty Act was passed. It was Josh Hawley, Tom Hawley, Josh Cotton thing. And basically, the way it carves out the current administration is that it doesn't go into effect until after they leave office. The provision wouldn't go into effect until after President Dump and Vice President Vance leave office, however. The critical difference between the two bills is that the Honest Act also bans the president and the vice president from making trades while in office, but it doesn't go into effect until after they leave office. So it's only for new presidents and vice presidents. Oops. So, don't these disputes end with state Supreme Court deciding on maps? I believe so. I believe that's the way it is. And then wasn't in one case or two cases, didn't SCOTUS recently overturn a map or something like that? So maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good. It's not. So good for, I'm glad that California is fighting back. That's good. Happy about that. Oh boy. Let's see. Does he have to say anything? Okay, so basically this is all about redistricting. Okay, I get it. Let's see. This one, this speaking of Scott Bessent, Ohio should redraw their maps. Little Jim Jordan has the most gerrymandered district in the county. I've heard that, or in the country. I've heard that. I've heard that about that. I've heard that about what is it? Where is he? Iowa, Ohio. All right, so this is Scotty Bessent. Listen,
trade on the eve of that August 1st
trade
deadline. President Trump says,
President
Secretary Scott
Mrs.
Bessent.
Beasley.
Mr. Secretary, always a pleasure to see you and have you on the show.
Morning, Joe.
We heard yesterday after we saw the EU and in Japan, we heard actually that South Korea, just to paraphrase, it might have been like, what about us? We're here. And then before we know it, we hear from South Korea. Is that typical? Are there other countries that have seen what's happening that are saying, we don't want to be the last country to make a deal with President Trump?
Well, look, we've got the August 1st deadline coming up, and as we mentioned before, the rates could boomerang back to the April 2nd level. South Korea was a special case because they had an election, a new government, so they were not in the position to fully negotiate. They came in yesterday afternoon. They presented a very good offer. President Trump moved.
Whoa, we got something. Breaking news.
Emergencies, but in the context
this
of
is an appeals court. Hold on, I'm coming.
That authority, and he can invoke all of it, subject to the limits in the emergency authority.
Wait, hold on. This is the U.S. Court of Appeals. Let me go back to the beginning. All right, so this is the Court of Appeals, and it has to do with tariffs. VOS Selections, Inc. versus Trump. And let me just tell you. So this is a U.S. Court of Appeals holds oral arguments in VOS Selections, Inc. versus Trump. I want to see what this is all about because it has to do with tariffs and tariffs being illegal.
Possibly then mistaken view,
Man,
nonetheless, that they had
why are you so fucking low?
override without a presidential veto, which is why they weren't worried about bestowing the broad power. It turns out they were wrong, but that doesn't affect the broad bestowing of power.
Correct. It doesn't affect the broad delegation of power. I think you're referencing Chad, right? So when IEEPA was enacted, one house, Congress itself could terminate a declaration of national emergency and suspend the president's power. After Chada, that was no longer the case, but the statutes have been amended after the fact. And
just the National Emergency Act has been amended. This one hasn't, right?
Correct, but if Congress terminates a national emergency,
Can you guys hear it okay?
Terminate the president's ability to invoke IEEPA because IEEPA depends on the national emergency.
And have there been cases in the Chada line that say when certain powers were granted subject to an unconstitutional legislative veto provision, the power fails?
I don't know, Your Honor, but the statute has been amended to account for Chada, and the process is still consultation with Congress, reports to Congress. Presumptively, the emergency only lasts 1 year, and Congress has a procedure to terminate national emergencies. All of that, I think, shows available that IEEPA is there are checks on the president. If we can go back to the limits on the statute.
Before you go there, Counselor, one of the major concern that I have is that IEEPA doesn't even mention the word terrorist anywhere. And when Congress rewrote the TWA and came up with IEEPA, it certainly was aware about tariffs. And correct, I mean, you can see that they were, and the United States possesses a highly structured regulatory statutory framework for trade matters. And I have 10 listed here, and I won't go through the list, but they all mention the word terrorist.
An emergency.
And you would agree with me that those statutes do pertain to tariffs, and there's no doubt about that, correct?
Correct.
But here, IEEPA doesn't even say terrorist. Doesn't even mention.
It's two different things, maybe.
I don't think that's unusual. I think there's at least two statutes I can point you to that don't use the word. Don't use the word tariffs. Section 232C says adjust imports. Section 120.
What do you mean it's not unusual? It's not unusual in the
Too low? Okay.
Trade
okay. Hold on.
It is very usual in the trade framework.
Hold on, hold on, hold on. Oh, is it going to make it?
And the other is whether or not IEEPA is limited.
Oh, wow. They are all low. They are all low. Fuck.
There are other, excuse me, go ahead. I just meant to say there are at least two examples of statutes that authorize tariffs that don't use the word tariffs. Section 232C and 122, which authorizes the president to restrict imports.
But
So
are both of those in a part of the code that deals expressly with customs and duties, unlike IEPA, which is not in that chapter?
It is. I think Yoshida has kind of directly addressed this point, where a similar argument was made in that case to the argument made in this case that, yes, there are a bunch of many specific tariff authorities, and those tariff authorities should govern over a specific emergency authority. Yoshida said at page 578, quote,
that was an issue when Yoshida was decided, correct? The mentioning of the word tariffs, or just including that. Why is it that when Congress wrote the IEPA and borrowed almost all the language it did from the TWA, why did it not recognize Yeshiva in a way to include, to even mention the word tariffs or duties?
I think it didn't need to specifically use the word tariffs because it was writing that law 2 years after Yoshida had recognized that the phrase regulate importation authorized tariffs.
Okay, but your problem is that Yoshida didn't speak that broadly. The customs court there said the government's construction allows a wholesale rewriting of the tariff schedule. And Yoshida said, no, that's not true. It's cabined. It doesn't give that broad authority. And why is it that when Congress adopted IEPA, it didn't write against the construction that was given by the statute in Yoshida, which authorizes tariffs, but also is a limiting construction? Why do we accept part of the construction, but not the other part of the construction?
You can take the whole holding of Yoshida, but I think you have to look to IEPA itself for the limits on the tariff authority. Sounds like we all agree the phrase regulate importation authorizes at least some tariffs. So then the question is, what are the limits on the president's tariff
There's some
authority?
background on the case.
Those limits have to come from IEPA itself, and the statute.
But here's the problem. I mean, you're saying, I mean, I don't think you're responding to Judge Steck's question. We want to use Yoshida to say that regulate as a term, regulate tariffs. But to do that, you have to, and let me preface by saying, I don't think, hypothetically, let's make it hypothetical, hypothetically, I don't think regulation in this context naturally would include tariffs. So I have to get there through some other way. And the way is ratification of Yoshida by Congress. But if we assume that Congress intended to ratify Yoshida, don't we have to assume that it intended to ratify its entire holding, which is that regulate doesn't mean unbounded authority to impose tariffs. It means bounded tariff authority within the confines of what it described there, and there was very specific facts about how some of these tariffs would not go above, I think, Schedule 2. We read Congress as incorporating all of that, not just the definition of regulate, but that regulate in this context means the power to impose limited tariffs within this framework. Then does this executive order comply with that limited framework in Yoshida?
Yes, it does, because you have to find some law that the president violated to strike down the tariffs. On that hypothetical,
not if it exceeds the definition of regulate as adopted by Congress from Yoshida. It's not just regulate equals tariffs. Regulate equals tariffs that are within the statutory framework already enacted by Congress. And I don't think those are true here for at least some of them. Maybe some of them are, but some of them are not.
But Congress enacted IEPA, we're using the same language, right?
I don't think you're going down a line you are not going to answer my question. So
I'm trying to identify what the limits would be that would constrain.
the limits are in Yoshida. Take that as the starting point. You accept that Yoshida itself, as a matter of reading that case, has limits on the authority to impose tariffs as part of regulate. And you read the case and you see the context, which is President Nixon imposed some tariffs that went slightly above, but my understanding of the court's opinion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that the court specifically looked at.
I'll just read this. Legal authority from the congress.gov website. Legal authority for the president to impose tariffs Let's see. All right. Legal authority for the president to impose tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Okay. And that's what Yoshida. Hold on. Has been filed. Da da da. No no no. Yika yak. Blooky blook. I'm so sorry. It's so low. I cannot find another broadcast that is any higher than in volume. Damn it. Where's the Yoshida piece? Hold on. La la la. It's let's see. Okay. It says the opinion. Okay. The Yoshida case granting Yoshida's motion for summary judgment declaring an import duty surcharge invalid. Because it imposed the surcharge, it was held to have been beyond the president's delegated powers. The court stated that a delegation of sufficient breadth to encompass the proclamation would have been unconstitutional. So the facts. Yoshida's merchandise was imported from Japan and entered the port of New York in 1971. This is a 1971 case. The government levied, in addition to the standard duty under blah, 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 an import duty charge of 10% in accordance with Item 948, which was added to the TSUS by a presidential proclamation. Yoshida challenges only the validity of the proclamation. Interesting. So this is around the president's ability to invoke tariffs under emergency, under IEPA. So it's another, which actually Yoshida, the precedent that they're referring to, judged those particular surcharges as unconstitutional. Excuse me. Oh my God, I'm hiccuping. Okay, here we go. We'll try and hear it again.
And said because a lot of these there have been concessions before.
Fucking assholes. Fucking speaking to a microphone.
And so that was the context in which they were allowing a presidential assertion of tariffs under IEPA within the already existing framework.
Thank you, Carrie.
Said, we don't think regulate here means unbounded authority. And it seems to me you're asking for unbounded authority. Isn't that a problem?
The president is not asking for unbounded authority, and I think you have to interpret
unbounded authority in the terms of the amount. Are you asking for unbounded authority in the terms of the percentages you can?
Well, there certainly is no cap in
IEPA. Is there an answer to that? Is there a yes or no answer to unbounded authority in terms of yes or no?
No, there is no limit on the cap of the tariff in IEPA itself. There are limits in IEPA, and I think
Do you not read Yoshida as suggesting that there should be a limit on the amount?
But I think
No. I understand you don't agree with the way I'm looking at it, but
I believe the lawyer speaking, who's the louder voice, is Trump's lawyer.
It just, I mean, particularly because it said very, very little about Yoshida in the legislative history. It just noted it. It certainly didn't say, well, we agree that regulate means tariffs. All we're doing is relying on that canon of Congress intends to enact, when they reenact it, intends to adopt judicial precedent. I don't see any precedent that says, well, we can parse it and say they intended to adopt this part of the case, but not this part of the case.
So I'm trying to answer the question. We take all of Yoshida, but the fact of the matter is the president didn't rely on the Trading with the Enemy Act. He relied on IEPA. IEPA against the backdrop of Yoshida, and IEPA itself has its own limits.
So I just want to add in, because we talked about legislative history a little bit, that the legislative history says Yoshida was a thin opinion. Did you read that part of legislative history? Are you aware of that part?
Yes.
Okay. And so it sounds like you're having Yoshida carry a lot of weight, but I think there are these portions of that history that really do take issue with Yoshida and potentially don't support it is fully ratified.
But Congress would have understood when it used the exact same phrase, regulate importation in IEPA, against the backdrop of Yoshida, that it would be authorizing tariff authority in the president. And I think the question is then, what are the limits? Does this tariff authority, these actions...
What substantive limits do you think are on IEPA? Why don't you tell us that?
Sure. So 1702B identifies 4 specific limits on IEPA authority. For example, the president can't regulate...
That doesn't have anything to do with the scope or duration of the tariffs. And you're just discarding the holding of Yoshida that you don't like. And the Customs Court said the effect of what the president is claiming here is to allow a wholesale rewriting of the tariff schedules. And on appeal, the court said, no, that's not true. That's not what it does. And now you're saying, oh yes, we can do a wholesale rewriting of the tariff schedules. We can tack on 10% to every tariff that Congress has provided there. That's a wholesale rewriting of the tariff schedule. And I just don't see how you read Yoshida as authorizing that.
So Section 232 also doesn't have a cap on the tariff rate?
No, you're not answering my question. How is it that you can read Yoshida as authorizing that kind of wholesale rewriting of the tariff schedule?
Well, I think, so Yoshida 578 said, quote, the existence of limited authority under certain trade acts does not preclude the execution of other broader authority under a National Emergency Powers Act, end quote. So what they were saying was, yes, there may be other tariff statutes that may also apply in the context of non-emergencies, but in the context of an emergency, the president can invoke that authority, and he can invoke all of it, subject to the limits in the emergency authority.
At 583 in Yoshida, the court said, quote, the declaration of a national emergency is not a talisman enabling the president to rewrite the tariff schedules. And because that would sound the death knell of the Constitution.
Yeah,
so
exactly. What is the national emergency? Thank you.
Of your case, but as others have said, you have to buy all of Yoshida. And it seems pretty clear to me that Yoshida is telling us that no, the president doesn't have the authority to rewrite the tariff schedule. And it seems like in this case, that's what the president is trying to do.
Respectfully disagree, Your Honor. I think that the main point I can say in response is, yes, we can take all of Yoshida, but you have to interpret this statute and the limits on this statute. And is there any argument that the president violated or exceeded any limit in IEPA itself? There's not, because there are limits.
And the next question is, maybe there needed to be a limit in IEPA that is lacking, because it's standardless in terms of what kind of guidance Congress gave or should have given to the president in terms of figuring out how far it could go in terms of imposing these types of tariffs.
I'm happy to talk about non-delegation. I'm sure we'll get there, but I think a dissatisfaction with the limits in IEPA itself is not a license for the court to impose its own limitations on the statute.
We haven't talked about Section 122.
Yes.
The Trade Act of 74. And that has limits, time limits and amount of the tariff. And it's a lot, it doesn't, the specific governor general. Even if IEPA has some relevance to tariffs, 122 is more specific.
So in this area, Congress often enacts multiple overlapping statutes. And as I said earlier, when Yoshida addressed this point, there may be other specific tariff authorities that the president could...
We have this rule of interpretation in the law. The specific governs the general.
We also have a canon that you're supposed to interpret statutes so they fit together and that one doesn't supersede the other. And you can interpret 122 and IEPA to work together. This 122 says whenever. So whether it's an emergency or non-emergency, 122 is available. IEPA is only available in the context of an emergency. And you wouldn't read 122 to limit IEPA any more than you would read IEPA to limit Section 122. They're both available.
Prost is next. I'm going to do some refereeing up here. Judge Prost is next.
I think you have thrown two different things maybe. One is whether or not it's unbounded, and the other is whether or not IEPA is limited to the limits that existed under Yoshida and those specific limitations in the statute. And I
Whoa. Whoa. I don't know. No, I think we were dreaming. I think we were dreaming that people had a stroke. It was just a dream. What is going on? Why are you doing this?
that Congress was acknowledging, and this House report reflects this, that we're giving broad authority because we're dealing in the known unknown. We're dealing with something extraordinary that maybe was unforeseen, that has maybe never happened before. And that's why you don't necessarily want to be limited to something that happened before 1977.
That's correct. IEPA is an entirely different statute, uses the same phrases as before, but Congress intended to provide extraordinary power to the president in an emergency and has these checks in 1701.
But counsel, if you agree with those limits, are those limits judicially reviewable? And if they're not, are they really limits?
So we agree the limits in section 1702 are reviewable, whether this regulates importation. We disagree that 1701 is reviewable, whether there's an emergency, whether there's an extraordinary threat.
So if they're not reviewable, how are they limits?
They're reviewable because the president himself is bound by law. The Congress itself can review the declaration of an emergency and terminate that. The president has to report to Congress. Congress has terminated emergencies in the past. So the fact that there's no judicial review doesn't mean the president isn't bound by the law.
Judge Hughes is next. Sorry.
So let me go back to regulate. And let's just let Yoshida aside entirely, because I'm struggling with your answer because you seem to have not part of it, not part of it. So let's just go on IEPA without any background. And so what we're looking at is regulate in the context of this specific statute without any legislative history beyond just general stuff. Why would we assume that in this specific context, the Congress would have intended regulate to mean the power to tax? Would regulate sometimes, but not only includes the power to tax. And keeping in mind that tariffs have long been the function of Congress, and that, I mean, if we interpret it that broadly, I think we butt up against some major questions.
So we're not relying only on the word regulate, but regulate any importation, which is similar to adjusting imports, restricting imports. As far back as Gibbons, the Supreme Court recognized the power to regulate commerce by imposition of duties. I think it's also...
So those are things Congress did, not the executive.
And Congress delegates its tariff authority, its power to tariff, to the executive, and the question is whether IEPA is one of those statutes. Section 1702.
Sure, but Congress can, I'm sorry, I will let you answer it. Congress can also delegate the additional power to impose user fees and things like that that are along the lines of taxes. But you acknowledge that every time they use the word regulate, it doesn't include the power to tax. So where's the dividing line on this use of regulate without looking at the issue?
It's regulate importation, and one of the ways for centuries countries have regulated importation is by imposing a condition on the good and its access to into the United States by charging a fee.
Using the term regulate imports, Congress intended to give up its long-standing power to tax imports to the executive, admittedly under emergency circumstances, but that's what you think.
Yes, Congress has delegated a number of specific tariff authorities to the president. It's not surprising that Congress...
Sure, but when they have, almost every one of them uses the word.
Where specifically have they delegated authority in this instance to this administration? Where I know this man is saying that Congress has delegated the authority to the executive, but I'm asking where in specific has Congress delegated this authority for this type of tariff scheme? When I was accidentally on the Daily Beast video, they were talking about Epstein. Has anyone seen the pics of him after that? Ooh, God. He has really good color for a dead guy. Oh, my God. No, no, no. That's terrible. Oh, my God. Okay. I'm so sorry this is so low, but I really think this is important to hear around the challenge to the president's ability to just completely fuck with our tariff stuff. So, anyway.
Tariffs or duties in some
Speak up.
This is the only one I've seen where they have not used tariff or duty or tax or something like that.
I don't think it should be surprising, though, that because this is an emergency statute, when Congress delegated the even more extraordinary power to block and prevent imports altogether, Congress would have also wanted to authorize the executive to also take the lesser measure of imposing a condition on import, which is essentially a license fee. And 1702A expressly authorizes licenses.
That's right.
Yeah, but these are not licenses.
Just real quick.
My first question is, what is the government's view on what the threat is? Is it the trade deficit? Is it, I mean, that's what your brief suggests.
Okay, this is important because someone asked earlier, what is the national emergency? So the judge in the appeals court just asked the government attorney, Trump's attorney, what is the emergency? So here we go.
I think it depends on which emergency declaration we're talking about.
Oh.
Reciprocal tariffs. So first of all, the president identified a number of underlying causes that are contributing to the trade deficits: tariff barriers, a lack of reciprocity in our trading relationships, non-tariff barriers, all of which contributing to a spike in our trade deficit, which is.
Oh, okay. So what he just said was that there was a spike in our trade deficit.
Reached the tipping point, and then the president identified the consequences of the trade deficit.
The consequences.
So the consequences are.
Okay. And then I have another question, just real quick. I don't see in the briefs where there was any attempt to distinguish between the various reciprocal or trafficking tariffs based on the varying amounts of those tariffs. Am I missing anything?
Well, you're not, because the plaintiffs don't challenge any of the rates, right? And they wouldn't have any basis to challenge the rates or ask the court to review the rates, because this court's precedent has been very clear, I think, that you don't review the president's rationale.
Okay,
or his
counsel, but what about the deals with? So you wanted to articulate 4 limits, and I want to give you a minute, and I'm hoping everybody will let you just get your 4 limits out before somebody interrupts you, because I think deals with is one of them, and I think that might provide us with the authority to have some very deferential review. Like, if the president says there's a problem with our military readiness and he puts a 20% tax on coffee, that doesn't seem to necessarily deal with unless he links it up somehow. You understand?
Right.
So can you address that quickly for me?
Sure. So our initial position is that 1701 is not reviewable at all. That's where the deal.
But get past that.
Even if it were reviewable, it would have to be extraordinarily deferential to the president. And sure, in an extraordinary case.
Answer my questions.
So these tariffs deal with the emergencies by giving the president leverage in the same way that President Carter.
So you think this is a bargaining chip like Dames and Moore?
Exactly.
But even on the reciprocal tariffs, you think it's a bargaining chip?
Yes, the president just negotiated trade deals with the European Union using the tariffs as leverage to negotiate trade deals that address the emergency that he identified. It's just like what President Carter did.
But that would read deals without.
No, it wouldn't. It would.
How is deals with still a meaningful limitation on presidential power?
Because it gives the president leverage to address the emergency through leverage, through negotiating with our trading partners. And that's what the president did here with the drug trafficking tariffs, and what he's doing with respect to the reciprocal tariffs. And I don't think
he's making the argument that it's trade deficits, but it's also drug trafficking tariffs, right? So it's supposed to make countries drug traffic less. What? So is that part of the trade deal? So can he point to specific actions that a government's going to take to address their drug trafficking? No, he can't, because this is all a lie. This is a lie, and this is the heart of the matter for me. The reason the tariffs are in place is to generate revenue and to stop imports. Because in my mind, what I'm putting together is the extortion from other countries. Because notice, there are mineral and resource deals being talked about also with many, many, many countries. Yeah, I mean, Lee, I'm so glad you're back. Unfortunately, this is very hard to hear, but it's the U.S. Court of Appeals on the IPA case. It's in this is the appeals case live on IPA. Lee, I have so many questions for you. I'm going to spend the rest of today just figuring out what my questions are for you. It's very hard to hear this, but I think it's so important. I can't find it a better broadcast, but this is very important.
plaintiffs are challenging the reciprocal tariffs and whether they deal with.
I know, but I was suggesting maybe they could.
Maybe they could, but the reciprocal tariffs directly deal with the emergency.
But Jim, this is the point. No one is telling him. I don't think it's Emperor's New Clothes, because why wouldn't Peter Thiel or any of those guys who are the donors, David Sachs, Mark Andreessen, any of those people, why wouldn't they stop him? Right? They're not saying fuck one word about this, which to me says that they're in support of his approach to restructuring world trade. So the why, that's what I want to know. Why? Why is this okay? Why is this okay with people? What do they know that I don't know? What does Mark Andreessen know that I don't know? Right? Like, this is so fascinating to me, because this is a complete shift in world trade precipitated by an administration out of nowhere, really. Yes, I will. I'll drop it. I mean, it is just fucking fascinating. I'm going to have to figure out a way to listen to this again. I don't know. Hold on, let me find it. Oh my goodness. I think this is so key. It is so key to me because yes, they want the resources from around the world. They want manufacturing here, but I think mostly I don't think it's even manufacturing. I think what they want is the AI and like a control point here. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying it right. I got to think about how I'm saying it, but this is just really interesting. Hold on. Let me get this. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to drop it in Discord. There, Lee, I just dropped it. There's the YouTube. There's the YouTube. This is just fascinating to me. I'm telling you, like, seriously, if tariffs are so great, why weren't we doing this much before? No one ever thought to do tariffs. No, because it's extortion. And we did do this, and it was back in the 20s or 30s, and it fucked us. Where tariff became a revenue source, right? Oh man, my mind is blown by this kind of stuff. I just think it's so important, and yet I don't think people are having the right conversations. Work has it blocked. Can't watch on this computer, going to get iPad. Oh my God. GWD tried it and led to 2008. Well, see, this is what, oh God. Oh my God. There's just so much. I wish I was smarter about this stuff. I wish I could be more eloquent about this for you guys, because I just feel like there's something there and I can't quite put my finger on it. Anyway, sorry, I'm going to shut up. It is very interesting because it's going to impact our day-to-day lives. That's the only reason I care about it, is it's going to impact our day-to-day lives, right? It's just not, oh, it has YouTube blocked. Oh, interesting.
The trade deficit by imposing tariffs to reduce imports and directly address the trade deficit.
Reduce imports? So there's an admission right there. Part of this is to reduce imports. So do you want the government structuring things so that you can't access the products that you want? And you want me not to go crazy. I know. Hi, Tom. We're struggling. We're struggling. I'm struggling.
Can a trade deficit be an extraordinary and unusual threat when we've had trade?
Can a trade deficit be an unusual threat?
The president identified a severe spike in the trading deficit
Of
over
when?
the last 4 years that have caused, essentially, it's reached a tipping point.
Uh-oh.
Right? It's affecting our military
Oh,
readiness.
we can check this.
It's affecting our domestic manufacturing capabilities. So yes, absolutely.
But we can't look at that. We can't decide whether that makes sense or whether it's supported by the record or by the existence of what the president
No, because 1701 delegates to the president discretionary choices, and the Supreme Court has been very clear in cases like Dalton versus Specter that, quote, how the president...
How does that solve a non-delegation problem when there's no judicial role?
So I'm happy to address non-delegation doctrine. So even taking the intelligible principle test on its own terms, the Congress here in IEPA identified the general policy.
What can we do as a court to cabin the president's authority under the statute if everything that he does is non-reviewable?
You can check whether the president complied with Section 1702, which is what we've been discussing today, whether he acted within the scope of his delegated authority in imposing tariffs. When it comes to his...
What does that mean? I don't understand.
Whether the statute authorizes tariffs. The key statutory question...
You say it does. It authorizes any kind of tariffs that he wants.
And I think the court can review that question under the clear misconstruction standard, but when it comes to the president's rationale...
Maybe in order to have an enforceable standard, we should limit the scope of his tariff authority?
Well, there is an enforceable standard, Section 1702, and there are limits on that authority under the non-delegation doctrine. 1702B identifies 4 specific limits. The fact that those limits may not be satisfying doesn't give the court a reason to identify or come up with extra textual limits on the president's tariff authority. Those are the limits in the statute.
You never told us what you're for. Quick, rattle them off. What are your 4?
So 1701 has a number of limits. Has to be a national...
4, precisely. What are they?
National emergency. Has to be an extraordinary and unusual threat. Has to emanate from outside the United States. It has to deal with the national emergency. Those are the 4 limits in Section 1701.
Whoa. Those weren't 4 limits. Oh, my God.
All the other trade relief statutes that
Oh.
right now. Section 338 of the Tariff Act. Section 232, which authorizes the imposition of additional duties. Section 122, Section 201, cases that have come
Ooh,
before
nice,
the
Tom.
court that authorizes the president.
Oh,
tariff
nice,
authority
Grace
to
Lee.
duty or tariff rate quotas. Section 301 of the Trade Act of 74. Section 731 of the Tariff Act of 1930. Section 107 of the Trade Act. Section 505 of the Trade Act of 74. All of these are, and I'm sure you would agree with me on this, but all of these are trade relief statutes, correct?
Correct.
They're designed to ameliorate or to repair some sort of damage that's been done to the U.S. economy because of imports, correct?
Correct.
And all these statutes are directed to imports, and they have a beginning and end. Some have very complicated, highly technical, investigative regulations. Is that right?
Correct. I think.
So why would the president ever rely on all of these trade statutes if he has under IEPA this unbounded power?
Because IEPA has its own limits, right? And even just yesterday,
There's
has to be a national emergency, right? It has to be an extraordinary and unusual threat, and IEPA is not going to be sufficient to address every trade situation. Just yesterday.
Did you get all your limits out? Were there
No, he didn't.
As I said, we covered the 1701 limits. We covered the 1702B limits, the 4 limits there. The same argument I think was made in Yoshida that yes, there were other specific tariff authorities that President Nixon could have relied on, but the court said the president can.
Those statutes have metes and bounds. They impose safeguards on the president. How long an action can take, how far an investigation, proving material injury to a U.S. Manufacturing sector. All of those are now dislocated if we adopt your argument. Your argument dislocates that entire U.S. trade relief framework that I just called out on.
Not at all, Your Honor. Even just yesterday, the president signed a new 232 order with respect to copper.
But do you see the difference between an anti-dumping action and the type of procedures that are built into place, the safeguards are built into place, allowing all parties to comment and enduring and looking at whether there's been a certain burden of proof that has been met? None of that is in IEPA. Why is IEPA a trade relief statute?
Because in emergencies, Congress wanted to give the president extraordinary authority to protect the United States, its national security and foreign policy. And all of those tariff statutes are...
One last point here. Are you familiar with the GSP system, Generalized System of Preferences?
I'm sorry, I'm not.
Okay.
Mr. Shimei, sorry.
That too is a trade relief statute, and it's a process
It's
whereby
true, Grace.
the United States recognizes lesser developing economies. And it allows us lesser developing economies to maintain a higher tariff rate than what we impose against them.
Yeah.
So only Congress can amend and renew that GSP system. Seems to me that this is another trade relief statute that IEPA would dislocate if we were to adopt your argument.
Okay, I want to just talk about what he just said, right? He said that there there have been trade relief statutes that he rattled off. For example, where underdeveloped countries basically are allowed to charge higher tariffs to us because, again, they are underdeveloped countries, and part of this is the ability to help. I think that's what he's talking about. And he's talking about the fact that if they then approve of what the president is doing unilaterally, that this would undermine those tariff relief programs or statutes. So, is the new, or I don't know if it's the new order. Yeah, I don't know if it's the new order. Copper stocks are way up because I think they're going to talk about mining. They talked about the mine yesterday. He talked about the California, what's it called? I can't remember what he called it, but there's some some refinery or something that's going up between Las Vegas and Los Angeles on the way between those two cities. There's some kind of refinery type thing when they talked about metals coming in and getting, processed or whatever. There's a better word for that, refined, I guess. So this is the other piece that's kind of giving me a little pause, is that the push to but we should probably talk about it tomorrow, Lee, so I don't get it wrong, but just the push to do so much here around metals and mining. And this guy yesterday was talking about the fact that you could mine and refine in the same area. I have a feeling that's what we're going to be seeing. Yeah, we're going to talk about like the oversaturated markets and metals and things like that tomorrow. Lee will give us whatever information she has on that so we can try and understand some of this. But it's stretching my little tiny brain so far. Anyway, speaking of charts, let me show you this chart while we're here. Sorry. You know me and my charts. I love data. So this is the United States balance of trade, because what this guy was saying was in the last 4 years. Wait, what did he say? He said in the last 4 years, that's when the trade deficits really went crazy. So I'm going to show you, this is 10 years of trade deficits, or balance of trade rather, okay? So you can see there's a trade deficit, like this is 0 right here. Oh, I should make this bigger. Hold on. See if I can make it bigger. No, you can't. I want to make you big. Bigger, bigger, big. Oh, there we go. Oh, man, it's making it smaller. Okay, here we go. That's a little better. All right, so you can see this is a 10-year U.S. balance of trade chart. Starts in 2015 here, okay? June 2015, the trade deficit for the United States. Oh, wait, who's leaving? Refining capacity in copper is outside the U.S. See, this is what yeah, Lee. Oh boy. I've been told it's difficult to set up refining ops for multiple reasons. Lots of copper going into data centers. Yeah, it takes on average 10 years to get a mine up and running. We tore down most of the smelters here because they are really horrible polluters. Yeah, hello. There's a reason by this. Okay, so July 2015, our trade deficit is 40.34 billion, right? Right before Dump takes office. So then we go through his term and the trade deficit stays about that, right? Blah, 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 but in November in 2020, we're starting to dip down. The trade deficit gets a little worse. And who's president in May 2020? Wait, who's president in May 2020? Oh, yeah, that'd be Dump. So Dumpy McDumperson has a trade deficit of 62, almost 62 billion. And then because of COVID, yeah, it goes down because everybody stopped trading. All right. And then I'm not sure what happened here, March of 22, but we had a really deep trade deficit at that point. Then it started to go back up over the time. This is Joe Biden. Okay. This is Joe Biden. Wait, here's Joe Biden. Wait, here's Joe Biden. Right? 60, negative 65, da 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 da. Ooh, big dip. I don't know what happened there. But then it came back up. Da, da, da. Now this is, wait, where? Here is October 2024, November 2024. And now here's 25, January 2025. No, let's go to March. March 2025, the lowest point, negative 138 billion. So our trade deficits went way down when Dumpy McDumperson is president. Okay? Now, it went back it went back up, I think, in May. We reduced the trade deficit back up to negative 71. It's on its way down again. So I think that this is a fake argument to blame it on Biden because it's simply not. It's not the case. You know, we didn't start the fire. The fire was always burning, okay? And actually, Dump just threw kerosene on the fire. Well, I'm going to read you a story about what the admin does with charts, because that's a problem, Grace Lisa, and I think we're starting to see that.
Well,
the numbers are funny.
All of those statutes remain
exactly. Just stop testing. The cases will go down.
Understood that in an emergency,
this is actually happening now because people are worried about our data.
All the procedures and have a rulemaking process and have an investigation.
Just like we read the other day.
Threat to the United States.
We're going to hear from Judge Cunningham. You can answer that, and then we want to turn to the appellees.
So instead of trade deficits, let's say the emergency is the U.S. has a large budget deficit. What, if anything, constrains the president's ability under IEPA to declare the budget deficit an unusual and extraordinary threat?
Well, I think 1701 requires the threat to.
And so the question was, why do you consider the national debt the emergency?
Have a source outside the United States. It's not clear to me that a budget deficit would satisfy 1701. And then 1702 A1B also requires that a foreign national have an interest in the property. So it just doesn't seem like IEPA would be available in that type of situation.
Okay. We'll save the rest of your time for
rebuttal. Oh, they're fucking with your data, Grace Lisa.
Thank you, Chief Judge Moore, and may it please the court.
This is
we
the
just heard
appellees.
An argument in responses to Judges Hughes, Stark, and Dyke that our federal courts are powerless, that the president can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, for as long as he wants, so long as he declares an emergency. That is as major a question as it gets, a breathtaking claim to power that no president has asserted in 200 years, and the consequences are staggering.
I understand why you'd want to start there, but that might not be the way I, for example, view my role in reviewing the 4 limits that Mr. Shumate mentioned. So could you address if we perceive ourselves as having some ability to review deals with extraordinary and unusual threat, what standard ought we to use for that? And how detailed a review do you think I get to?
So we think they would still lose if there were some detailed review. Obviously, you heard him pushing away. You gave him chance after chance to say, hey, are any of these limits judicially enforceable?
Answer my question.
Yes. So we think that if you started to review, as he said, you'd review the 1702 limits, including unusual and extraordinary threat. And if so, they would lose every day of the week. This is the antithesis. IEPA has a freestanding requirement of a unusual and extraordinary threat in the statute, and unusual, as our brief explains using dictionary definitions.
Can I jump in, just because the following is one way of thinking about it that I'd like to get your answer to.
Oh, bitch.
And this has to do with the difference between a balance of trade and goods and a balance of payments and different kinds of consequences that a simple difference in a negative balance of trade in goods, more imports than exports, can cause. All by itself, as your own MEP say, a negative balance of trade into goods is neither bad nor good, just inconsequential until you specify the consequences. So one needs to know what the consequences are. Some kinds of consequences might be monetary, and we start calling those balance of payments because there are other factors that go into the accounting category of balance of payments. The reciprocal tariff executive order doesn't mention balance of payments. I mean, that should be obviously one reason that 122 might not apply. That's not what I want to get to now. This executive order says there are 5 or 6 related consequences of a negative balance of trade in goods. I'm going to summarize them as severe deficiencies in our manufacturing capacity. Yeah. As I read, and that's what would have to be unusual and extraordinary. As I read your argument here and below, the only thing you said about why we have something usual and ordinary is that negative balance of trade, a negative balance of trade in goods is decades and decades old. I don't see you having said anything at all about the usualness or ordinariness of the manufacturing deficiencies that are in fact itemized in the EO. That's what I want to get your
Thank you. So first let me talk about Chief Judge Moore's question about the standard of review and then get to the specific question about balance of payments.
Maybe the standard of review doesn't matter if you haven't.
I understand that, but just let me, for Chief Judge Moore, we do think that Congress imposed a freestanding requirement about unusual and extraordinary, unlike, for example, their argument about emergency declarations, which are things that are committed to the president, and so there may be discretion there, but this is a freestanding thing which there is no discretion to whatsoever. They cite no precedent that says they get discretion in that circumstance. Now, on your question about balance of payments, you know,
forget about the balance of payments. That goes to 122. I don't want to talk about 122 right now. You probably get there. I want to talk about the difference between a negative balance of trade in goods and the consequences that may or may not occur. This executive order itemizes 5 or 6 consequences, and I do not see that you have made a case that those consequences are anything but.
I think we have. We've taken the president at his word, in which he says first that the trade deficit is large and persistent, and then second, the consequences of that trade deficit, he says, are the diminishing of the manufacturing base and the like. And we're not asking you to second guess the president here. We're just saying take that exactly as a given. That's exactly what trade deficits operate under the historical norm. He says, well, it spiked. It spiked by 40%. He says that's not inflation adjusted.
Things can build to a tipping point, right? It's like going bankrupt gradually, then suddenly. Suddenly there are these deficiencies in manufacturing, and I don't see manufacturing capacity, and I don't see that you have made any case. And I will say, do you agree that in the procedural posture here, if we got to the point of thinking that it was wrong to grant you summary judgment, we would remand for you to be able to address, for example, the kind of issue I'm now talking about?
I think we would, but I really don't think you need to get there whatsoever. That is, the president's executive order isolates the trade deficit and those consequences as persistent.
The executive order says that those consequences are persistent.
The trade deficit's been persistent and I think the whole point of the requirement, Judge Toronto, is in circumstances in which Congress can't act, in which you have an emergency crisis, then of course the president has some broad leeway. That's what, as Judge Dyke was pointing to, Yoshida was about. But it was limited in all those ways. Here he's coming in saying, well, I can declare a slow boil kind of emergency or something like that. That isn't the point of what IEPA is about, or the TWIA, or the predecessor statute of TWIA. More importantly, I think, and this goes to something that Judge Reyna was saying earlier, we're talking about a statute that doesn't mention tariffs whatsoever in it, that no president has.
But I'd like, before my colleagues get in, we've talked a lot about what regulation of importation means. We've talked about what it doesn't mean, i.e., arguably tariffs. What does it mean? What work does it do?
Yeah, so I think it permits, quotas, like limiting on the number of goods, licensing requirements.
Does it include licensing fees?
Well, licensing fees, I think, are a more complicated thing. The one thing that I think it excludes for sure is tariffs, because historically that is something that our founders committed to the Congress. And as Judge Reyna was pointing out, every single time
Congress has given the president tariff authority. They've done so expressly with words. He says Section 122 didn't use the words. Of course not. It says, quote, in the form of duties. He says Section 232 doesn't use those words. Of course not. It refers to duties
Can we just talk
specifically
about
in the statute.
colonoscopies again?
So,
where's the butt talk?
So you said fees, but not license fees. You said quotas.
Yeah, so
Wouldn't
that's
quotas
terrible,
come
Jim.
under prevent or prohibit? I mean, a lot of verbs in subsection B.
it would be a lesser thing, so you don't have to restrict all of them. And he said, well, the president's power to blockade is a greater power than the power to tariff. Absolutely not. And this is what Gibbons versus Ogden is all about. The whole idea is that tariffs and taxation are always tempting for kings and for presidents. And so that's why that power was located in Congress. And every single time Congress has departed and given that power to the president, they've done so clearly. And here,
What's
this
Algonquin? It said Algonquin said adjust imports.
Adjust imports, but then it says
Supreme Court
duties.
Said, that includes
Yeah, that's their best case, and boy, it's a terrible case for them.
Well, maybe their best case is Yoshida.
Well, on Algonquin itself, that's a case in which the statute itself said duties, unlike this one, in which it had.
Section.
And there's a legislative history that says we're all about giving the president such powers over tariffs. Nothing like that here whatsoever. His one reference in the legislative history to Yoshida is thin at best and doesn't say anything about them approving the prior authority. Now, you said Yoshida is their best case. I think, as Judge Dyke pointed out, if you want to live by the sword of Yoshida, you're going to die by the sword of Yoshida. Yoshida has very, very strong limits on the use of the tariff power.
Yikes! Sorry. Fuck you, Fox.
Limits that were in the proclamation that contributed to the upholding, and anything in Yoshida, I'm not sure there is anything that says these limits are necessary to our holding, and in the absence of them, we would hold differently.
Yes, so first let me start at 583, in which Yoshida said at court wasn't approving in advance any future surcharge of a different nature or sanctioning the exercise of an unlimited power which would strike a blow to our Constitution. And then there are three specific limits in the opinion. One, that Nixon put a ceiling on the tariffs at, quote, the rate prescribed by Congress. It didn't supplant the entire tariff scheme of Congress.
Sorry.
That's at 577 and 578. Second, that it was a temporary measure at 572 and 578, meaning they would, quote, end, and they said it was very important that Nixon announced those ex ante in advance, that it was a temporary measure. That's unlike here. And third, that the tariffs didn't apply to all imports, but only those goods already subject to the tariffs. That's at pages 577 and 568. And so the court said, quote, far from attempting to tear down or supplant the entire tariff scheme of Congress, the president imposed a limited surcharge. Its argument is that they ratified Yoshida, then they ratified all of those limits, whether you call them constitutional or not. That's what Congress had in mind. We think this whole thing is bogus. The idea that Congress ratified Yoshida, a one-panel decision of this court, that they had awareness of it in a statute in which they copied 76 words from the predecessor statute, TWIA. I mean, one of the predicates of statutory ratification is that the statutory landscape hasn't changed. As Judge Reyna was saying, it changed massively in 1974 with the enactment of Section 122, which is a statute to deal specifically with this. That's what Yoshida even says at footnote 33. It says Section 122 is the way to deal with large and serious trade deficits. So I think all of that says the other thing. It says that the government would lose. The other point to make here is that if the government is right, then they're going to run surely afoul of the major questions doctrine, because the very same arguments you heard my friend make on the other side, that you can smush into the words regulate importation, the power over tariffs, is exactly what the president has been saying and the Solicitor General time and again.
I know you want us to say that regulate doesn't include tariffs, and I think you have some pretty good points on that. But if we assume that the only way you get tariffs into regulate here is from Yoshida, then, and we assume that they have to adopt all of Yoshida, not just the definitional aspect, then do we need to even reach the broader question? Because I didn't hear any argument from the other side that the tariffs under either the reciprocal tariffs or the fentanyl tariffs met what were the clearly expressed boundaries in Yoshida.
Absolutely. I think you wouldn't have to reach them. You could reaffirm what the CIT did there. Absolutely. My point to you is if for whatever reason you didn't buy the idea that there are limits on Yoshida, that Section 122 isn't the way to do that, then you'd reach that broader question. Does IEPA authorize the regulation of terror?
Stop it! Oh, you guys are fucking assholes. Oh my god, the regulation of
Regulations to prevent communicable disease.
God damn
of
it.
course you could have fit into
So
there
take
the
you back
eviction
to the
moratorium.
meaning of regulate, the
Ew,
meaning of
terrible.
regulate. Could
Oh
you
my
respond to
god.
the government's argument that we kind of
God doesn't have a
from
doctor
context
complex. Hey,
when
that's
regulate
funny.
includes the power to tax and
Yeah.
when it doesn't?
Yeah, Judge Cirque, we are all about context. The context of no trade law in 200 plus years that has been interpreted to give the president this power, as Judge Lurie was saying, this statute has no friends. Second, the context of every statute that gives the president the power to tariff that expressly says so, that's Judge Reyna's point. The context of the Constitution itself, which
what do you
distinguishes...
make of the argument, if I understand it correctly, that say in the FDA Act, where the FDA is given authority to regulate, if I understand the government, they're saying the FDA at that point in the statutory scheme can impose taxes because it can regulate, but something else about the context of the FDA Act reads out that power.
Yeah,
tax.
as the U.S. Chamber of Commerce brief points out, what in the world context are they talking about? Take, for example, the SEC. The statute gives the Commission the power in 78K to, quote, regulate transactions on exchanges. Just like IEPA, to regulate importation, regulate transactions on exchanges. If this argument's true, every single time you and I sell a stock, the SEC can tax it.
So there's nothing in the textual language.
Oh, that's interesting.
That would read out that power.
Nothing that
That's
they can
interesting.
point to, and there's nothing in IEPA, by the way, that suggests that the president would have the power to regulate tariffs or taxation. The best he's got is this legislative history. I mean, it's been commonly said that legislative history is looking out at a crowd to pick out your friends. Here, they can't even find any friends to wave back. I mean, it is the most minor reference imaginable, and it certainly doesn't meet what this court has used as its threshold for the statutory ratification doctrine, which is a judicial consensus or something like that, or as the court, Judge Dyke's concurring opinion in Arellano versus McDonough said, which was a concentrated venue case, that, quote, we are dealing with the decision of a single circuit court which has not been reviewed by the Supreme Court, and in that opinion, you said the statutory ratification doctrine prerequisites were not met. More importantly, Judge Stark, if the government's argument's right, they've got to overcome the major questions doctrine. They are asserting as sweeping a power as one imaginable, with, as Chief Judge Moore pointed out.
Okay, I'm going to stop that nonsense, and I'm probably going to listen to it later on so that I can really understand it. But I will definitely link this. It's actually linked in our Discord right now, but I'll link this hearing, this appeal hearing, because I have other things I want us to get onto. Yikes. Yikes. What's the difference between proctologists and bartenders? Proctologists only have to deal with one asshole at a time. I love that joke. That's a good one. That's a good one. I know. Yikes. Okay. All right. We actually have a lot of other stuff to cover. But I guess I want to say I was just looking, like, for example, why was I looking at this? Oh, I was looking at why the big basically there's no emergency. I was looking why there was a big dip in trade balance in March of 2022. Well, first of all, February of 2022 was when Russia attacked Ukraine. And one of the notable items that I was able to find in March of 2022 that also happened, and I'm going to read this as carefully as I can so that you understand that I don't fuck it up. But there was a where is it? Okay, there was a disruption of the supply chain of nickel, right? Russia is a key producer of nickel, and because they had just launched a war, the nickel market fell apart in March of 2022. And there was a lot of and it says, while the nickel events didn't cause the global trade imbalance like a general tariff hike might, the disruptions led to significant shifts and imbalances in the nickel market and had broader implications for related industries and trade dynamics. So it wasn't, Biden. It wasn't Bidenomics. It was the fact that the Russians attacked Ukraine. They are a major nickel producer, and the market fell out when they kind of focused on war and not nickel. So, like, the London market was a big, crash or something like that. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. There's always more to the story, right? There's always, always, always more to the story. And that is what this administration relies on, is that the story is challenging at best to ferret through. Speaking of, this was this morning's interview with Scott Bessent, and he basically addresses why he said that about that Social Security, these college account, or no, what is it? These Trump accounts that are part of the big ugly bill, where there's like a funding. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. Actually, Trump. Yeah. All right, the Trump accounts. What are they and how do they work? Get out of here. Get out of here. Okay. Oh, God, you guys are so fucking weird. Okay, basically, President dumps the big ugly bill, launch of a new type of account designed for kids known as the Trump accounts. These are tax advantaged investment accounts the parents will soon be able to open on their child's behalf and start saving and investing. As an added bonus, kids who meet certain requirements, I don't know which requirements those are, will receive a free $1,000 from the federal government to seed the account. Though the account offers advantages, particularly for those eligible for the free money, Trump account also has some limitations. The Trump account is a special trust designed. Okay, so it's like a custodial account that you're going to put in. Parents, among others, can contribute up to $5,000 annually until the child turns 18, which is then invested in the stock market. What? Let me read. Let me show you what I'm looking at here. This is from what is this from? The Week. I don't know what the fuck that even is, but here we go. This is from published last week. What's that mean? Okay, anyway. 5,000 until the child turns 18, which is then invested in the stock market. Specifically, a quote diversified fund that tracks a U.S. stock index. A parent's employer can also contribute up to $2,500 to the account, and it will not count as taxable income. But because contributions are made with after-tax dollars, there is no tax deduction. Oh my God. Account holders can access the funds once they reach the age of 18. At that point, the accounts are treated much like a traditional IRA, wherein the money grows tax deferred and withdrawals are taxed as regular income. So it is. It's like a whatever. But which means they're taxed twice if you think about it, because if they're taxed money, Gal, the white ones, morning loungers, traveling still. Oh, love you, Gal. I love you so much. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're on a good trip. Accounts are treated much like a traditional IRA, blah, 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 blah. Plus a 10% penalty if you take the money out before age 59 and a half. Wait, what? Plus a 10% penalty if you take the money out before. Oh, so this is Social Security. Okay. Oh, boy. There are some exceptions, though, including penalty for your withdrawals for higher education or for those. Well, but why? Because they don't want anyone to go to college. Or for those that come as a result of disability, domestic abuse, or a natural disaster. There's also a $10,000 exception for new home purchases and 5,000 can go toward a baby of their own. But only children born after December 31st, 2024, and before January 1, 2029, who are U.S. citizens are eligible. Oh, so basically just Trump. If you're born in the Trump era, you get $1,000. The accounts are expected to become available next July. Details of how the accounts will be opened and funded remain to be seen. Is it worth it? Yeah, whatever. For instance, brokerage accounts including UTMA and UGMA, which are the custodial accounts. What is it? Uniform Trust for Minors Act, Uniform Gift to Minors Act, or something like that. Don't have contribution or withdrawal limits, said NerdWallet. If you're saving for college, a 529 plan offers more flexibility than a Trump account when it comes to who can open an account and use the money. So that's interesting. So that's the Trump accounts. Just so you know. And that's what Besant was charged with saying. Yeah, exactly. This is a Trump baby bonus. If you fuck during the Trump regime and you get pregnant, it's to get people to have babies. It's to get people to have babies. Oh my God. Yeah, they'll steal the money before they can get it. Yeah, the AI run stock market. Yep. 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 Anyway, so this is a little bit long, but it's important because it's Mrs. Beasley from this morning, and he does talk about his faux pas with spilling the beans on the Social Security scheme being replaced by this baby account. He 100 exactly. He did 100% literally said it was a backdoor to privatizing Social Security, and then tried to walk it back this morning, which is
Move the offer up a bit, and we reached a very good
so
agreement
loud.
where they will have 15% tariffs. They will buy a substantial amount of U.S.
This is,
energy.
South Korea
They will
he's
make
talking
a
about.
substantial investment in into the
maybe it's the
U.S.,
EU.
both from their sovereign resources and via private companies.
All right. So one of the criticisms of the EU deal is that the investment of 550 billion euro, or whatever it is, 600 euro over 3 years, so about 250 billion a year dollars, US dollars, is there was no source. So now Besant is coming out this morning and saying, "Oh, but it's some sovereign money, which means government money." But all the Europeans were saying, "Nope, this is for private business." So what are we going to do with like it's now Besant is saying, "No, that investment is also going to come from the governments, not just the businesses." Well, according to whom, Mrs. Beasley? Are you lying? I think you are.
So that sounds like a template. It sounds very similar to some of the other recently announced deals. What will it do for us in terms of exports to South Korea?
We pulled down a lot of the trade barriers, a lot of the non-tariff trade barriers.
Which ones?
So, obviously we'll be exporting a lot more energy to them, and then it will be better for our farmers, better for all of our exporters. As the South Koreans said, we like U.S. products, and now what we're seeing with President Trump is these.
Why weren't they buying them before then? So it will be on parents to create a Social Security plan for their kids from the silver-spooned mouths of generational wealth. You got it. You got it. You got it. Oh, Lee posted that Dump has sold 140% of U.S. energy. Is that really true? Oh my God, I missed that. Oh, it's complete. They said, Mrs. Beasley, you go out there and you tell them that's not what you meant.
Tariff barriers and the non-tariff barriers, which are more difficult to quantify sometimes, are coming down.
It's all those wonderful, you know what it is? It's all those wonderful Korean cosmetics. God damn it. God damn those Koreans and their beautiful skincare. Lee says, we don't have energy to sell to EU and Korea. They're selling our supply to increase costs in the U.S. And do they somehow, Lee, is it that they think that these small nuclear reactors and other things that are supposedly being built right next to all the factories that we're going to build, all these, electricity plants. You know how he keeps saying, "Oh, and if they produce excess energy, they'll be able to sell it to us back to the grid." What? Does anybody talk about that? Like, "Oh, bye, Carla. A doggy date from the pound and running a couple errands." Ooh, nice. You're so sweet. Mr. Global has great info regarding energy. I have this actually. Gosh, you know what? I have so much to talk about this morning. Please don't leave me if you can. But if you have to go, I appreciate you for coming. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get through this because I really want to talk about what Lee sent me about Mr. Global.
Jameson Greer,
I have that pulled up.
the USTR ambassador, has a book that looks like kind of 3 of the old New York City phone books that is a list of all the non-tariff barriers by country. They had been substantial. I believe with Indonesia, we marked out something like 11,000 lines of tariffs.
The lot was made of the president's comments about India. We were trying to figure it out exactly what, and it's obviously negotiating and leverage and everything else. And we've heard that we're close with India, and that's one of the majors, other than China, that are left. What was the president's intent yesterday with some of those comments about India? And do you expect something to happen before the deadline?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be up to India. India came to the table early. They've been slow rolling things. So I think that the president, the whole trade team's a bit frustrated with them. And also, India's been a large buyer of sanctioned Russian oil that they then resell as refined products. So, they have not been a great global actor.
How about in China, some of that wrapped up? And we'd like to hear it from you exactly what the tone was. And we understand how complex a deal with China and would involve and how many different myriad complex issues are involved. But where does it stand after the weekend or the last few days?
Yes, so we met for 2 full days in Stockholm. The Chinese are tough negotiators. We're tough too. It was led by the vice premier, my counterpart, Hu Feng, who I have great respect for. He is both a statesman, a tough negotiator, and very senior in the leadership. We pushed back on them quite a bit and made our positions known. I believe that we have the makings of a deal. They announced that we would have a 90-day roll, which was a bit premature. Ambassador Greer and myself will be speaking to President Trump today about whether we will be doing the roll by the August 12th deadline. There's still a few technical details to be worked out on the Chinese side. Between us, I'm confident that it will be done, but it's not 100% done.
Secretary Bessent, just in terms of the China negotiations, we had Leland Miller on earlier today. He does the China Beige Book report. He said that when you had the export controls that were put into these negotiations, and China forced that issue by throttling our exports to us of the rare earth minerals, that changed the leverage and gave China much more leverage in the situation. We heard this morning that China is asking questions now about NVIDIA's H20 chip and whether there are concerns, whether you can track those chips, and they want reassurances on that front. How much more complicated is the Chinese negotiation than it has been with any other country you've dealt with?
Well, one thing I'll tell you is that is a gross oversimplification from your previous guest. I didn't hear what he said, but I can tell you, they have used the rare earth magnets as a negotiating card, but we've got plenty of our own. And we at a point had 12 countermeasures on against them. They, all national security based. We have dropped those. The magnets are flowing, and we'll see. But you've got the 2 largest economies in the world, and Becky, what we've never seen before in recent history is if you look back to the economic negotiations, 70s, 80s, even the 90s, you look at the Plaza Accord, the Louvre Accord, some of the big economic negotiations, even when the U.S. came off the gold standard in the 70s, we were negotiating with our allies. Our allies were our biggest economic rivals, and then there was the Soviet Union, who was our big military rival. They were a small economy, but a military powerhouse. Negotiating with China, we are negotiating both with our largest economic rival and our largest military rival. So you're right to say that this is, in a way, three-dimensional chess.
Mr. Secretary, one of the things we're all watching is the Treasury market. And China, of course, had been a massive buyer over the years of our treasuries. And I'm curious, as these negotiations continue over trade, and we start to see some of the numbers in terms of what they're buying or not buying, or frankly selling, how you think that could influence or change anything?
Yeah, so, and really for most of the Asian economies, 2017 marked the high point of their ownership of U.S. Treasuries. We've seen a gradual decrease since then. The Treasury market really hasn't featured in any of these negotiations.
Mr. Secretary, I have a real specific question to ask you about some of the unintended maybe consequences of tariffs. Ford hasn't lost money in a quarter since 2023. They make almost all their cars here. Now they're doing, I think they're trying the best they can to have U.S.-made vehicles, but they still import some parts. As a result, $800 million in tariffs pushed them into wiped out the profit entirely. Are there still carve-outs available? If a company like Ford comes to you and says, look, this is how this affected us, or comes to the president, this is a direct consequence of what's happening. That's not what was intended with the tariffs, was it? And it's not what we want, I don't think, to cause Ford to report a loss, even though they're trying their best to make all their cars here.
Yeah, and look, I admire, Joe, I admire Ford. Ford, I believe, has the highest U.S. production of any auto manufacturer. I think that there were numerous circumstances with Ford. I believe that the Ford, F-150, 250, their big truck series is made out of aluminum instead of steel, which is different than other cars. So I think maybe the aluminum tariffs have hit them harder. We will be negotiating with Canada on those. So, I think with Ford, it's probably been idiosyncratic.
On aluminum. Okay.
The number we got yesterday for GDP was above expectations. Great sounding number, 3%. But if you average it with the first quarter, many are pointing out it's about 1.2% average GDP growth, which is slower than in the last year. Obviously, the second half will tell the tale, and the big beautiful bill, a lot of those positives, some of the tailwinds for businesses probably aren't evident yet. But there is some, it looks like maybe some lessening of demand. One of the key drivers, I think, is final sales to private domestic purchasers. You probably are more familiar than I am with it. Slowest growth since 2022, and they're tying that to tariffs. I mean, there's a lot of long-term benefits, I think, the president and you see in tariffs. But near term, do you need some other things to kick in, maybe lower interest rates to offset some of the effects of the tariffs?
Well, Joe, maybe you should call the folks over on Constitution Avenue and tell them what you're hearing. That wasn't what Chair Powell said in the press conference yesterday. And I think we have great momentum in the economy. Now that the tax bill is passed,
we do?
There is great certainty. I think that there has been a big holdback in CapEx until companies were sure that they were going to get the 100% immediate
like buildings
expensing,
and shit.
and then they'll be getting, and that's permanent. They'll be getting 100% immediate expensing for factory structures and ag structures for the next.
Did you hear that? So part of the big ugly bill, which is why they all sound like it's such a great thing, is because it's good for profits. Because they're going to allow you to expense your building costs. I mean, really. Yeah, Lee, how are lower interest rates really going to be enough to kind of cover tariffs? And does that mean they expect us to borrow more money at a lower rate to pay for the more expensive and less available items? Is that what it is? Is it that the pricing of American-made items is going to go up because it can, because there's no competition? Is it basically eliminating international competition for products? Is that what we're looking at here? Is that the way you make a country great? Is by limiting the amount of purchasing that can be done by people, the freedom? Because countries, I'm sure there will be countries that decide not to export to us. First of all, they're making deals with other countries. Right? Like there will be less products coming from overseas as a result of this. Period. Like that doesn't sound like freedom to me. That sounds like higher prices and less selection. I don't understand this. I really don't. Is that it? Is that what I think? Am I right? I'm sure that's part of it. No personal buying power, only state-approved items for sale in state stores with cryptocurrency. I mean, I think that's the picture that I'm seeing, Lee.
5 years. So, we're seeing a CapEx boom that started. I think it's going to really accelerate third, fourth quarter. Andrew and I were out in Sun Valley. A lot of the tech titans out there are talking about the continued AI acceleration, and we're expecting to see that productivity kick in the first or second quarter of next year. So I would expect that we are going to see an economic acceleration from here. And again, if I were the Fed, I would try to think a little about the 1990s Greenspan model, where you saw the productivity kick in from the previous decades adoption cycle in office technology, in electronic technology. I think there's a good chance we could see a replay of the 1990s, and it's going to take a little bit of imagination, same way Alan Greenspan had.
With AI as well. One of the best things in the report yesterday, the PCE, 2.5%, that's almost where the Fed wants it to be versus previous 3.5%. So that's down, but you understand, Mr. Secretary, the more that the president or the administration crows about the strength of the economy, that just sort of gives, gives Jay Powell more rationale not to cut at this point. But when you throw in the PCE, along with maybe the average of the two quarters at 1.2, I think it makes it much more compelling. We had a couple of dissents. We haven't had two of them since 1993.
Well, I also think, I know Chair Powell said at the ECB annual conference in Portugal that the Fed would have been cutting if it weren't for tariffs. And Joe, to your point, we haven't seen any inflation, and PCE is quite nascent. So I'm not sure what the case is here.
But at this point, you figure. When will we hear? That's a good one. So he makes it till May, Jay Powell. Let's assume that. It's not unusual to see an appointment announced, well before then. Do you have any idea on when we might hear what the president is thinking in terms of Chair Powell's replacement?
I do. I'm going to be.
Can you tell
I'm
us?
going to be. Sure, Joe. If you could just lean forward, I'll tell you a little.
Oh, that's Connie Chung whispered in my ear. Yeah,
so
that's right.
We are putting together a very good list of candidates, and remember, there are going to be 2 seats opening up. Governor Kugler will be leaving in, I can't remember whether it's January, February, Chair Powell in May, so there will be 2 seats opening up. I'm putting together a list for President, Chief of Staff to review. We'll be interviewing people. I would expect that we could have an announcement by the end of the year.
Is Powell definitely leaving? Because even though his chairmanship is up, his seat, I think, extends a little longer.
His seat extends for 2 years.
2 more years.
2 years. It would be highly unusual for a chair to stay on.
Oh, really? Watch him.
You're helping with the search, obviously. We shouldn't read into it any like Dick Cheney type stuff, should we, Mr. Secretary? Look, Dick Cheney looking for a vice president, and then lo and behold.
Oh my gosh.
As I keep saying, I think
you would serve. He likes his job better.
He does. Yeah.
Says the food.
I'm going to actually interrupt because Lee dropped a couple of pieces of knowledge here. Projects that started, CapEx has been going up. Let me just show you CapEx here. Hold on. I got you, babe. This is a year of capital expenditures by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis data. Okay. I don't know all of what's included in here, but suffice to say, it's an indication of how much companies are spending on things like buildings and growing versus operating expenses like salaries and et cetera. So it's like assets versus payroll kind of thing, if you think about it, just to make it oversimplified. But if you look at capital expenditures as tracked by the Fed over a year, you can see they have gone up. Now, this would make sense in the post-COVID landscape. What happens when you go 5 years? Yeah, so this is from 2020. See how the dip, it's impacted, obviously, by companies, and then they've had to kind of, start to grow up again. So it's not unusual. But boy, if I go back 10 years, I guess they were going up under dump. So there's something. But they started to come down in 2019. So capital expenditures came down during 2019, kind of bailed during the, COVID era. In the post-COVID era, they've been growing over the last year. This is what, and now Q1, this is, so that in March, as of March 2025, this Q1 data is that there is higher expenditures. And projects are planned way in advance of expenditures. So it's not just like, oh, let's build a building and you do it in that month or even in that quarter. You just don't do that. So to Lee's point, projects that started under Biden are part of the reason that CapEx is growing, right? And God. And then she says, what else did you say, Lee? Because you said something really, now that CapEx expenditures, right? Those expenditures are going to be handcuffed by tariffs, which, by the way, all of them have not fully taken effect. Obviously, some of them have. So some of those are baked in, but some of them are not. And now those expenditures are going to be a little bit impacted by increased costs on other side, right? And Lee says, I'm in the middle of 3 of those, and people are pissed, way over budget. Yeah, so this is such an interesting and intricate, and unfortunately, it is rife with opportunity for chuds to misunderstand how this works, right? Because there are so many factors to take into account. And just because you see something going up is good, it doesn't mean it's good. You know what I mean? Like there's something to it. I don't know. There's always some more information that is needed. Let's see if these guys have anything else worthwhile to say, or we're going to move on.
Better at the Fed, though.
He might be able to keep that job and have the other job.
The food is better at the Fed, and I can tell you the Treasury building,
I don't give a shit
what
about
is
you.
best for the
views that are otherwise different.
Here we go.
Who has views that are otherwise different than the rest of the group and is therefore unable to effectuate the changes that perhaps the president would be pursuing?
I think, Andrew, that we want the person who's going to do what is best for the American people and for the economy. And as Joe said, we had the first two dissents for several decades, so it looks like there's already a schism in the board. So there would be two more voters. We would have a majority of the board, but of course then there are the regional governors who rotate their voting status.
Did people misunderstand that some of your comments and extrapolate it to Social Security, Mr. Secretary? Or was that actually something you're thinking about, the privatization?
No, it was ridiculous. I was giving an interview, and I was talking about the $1,000 baby bonds that every American citizen, every newborn is going to get. The Democrats hate this program because it brings capitalism and markets to every American, not just their constituents at the upper end. And
we're not the elites, you are.
Over time, the compounding is going to be an incredible supplement to Social Security, not a replacement. It is a complement. And
yeah, I know he's trying to save his ass. But here's the thing. Is it going to be invested in the market? So that's not. Oh, we just read a little tiny bit about it. I'll put the link in there. It's going to be invested in the stock market. So what you put in, it's like an IRA. It's like an IRA, basically, Lee. It's going to operate a lot like an IRA, where you can make certain levels of contributions, and then it's going to be, that money is going to be invested in the market. Yeah, he did say backdoor. He misspoke, and now he's having to fucking do a little dance. So.
What I said was Social Security will continue as it is. It is intact. Everyone will get their check every month.
Why don't we believe
but
you?
It's very exciting to me that there could be a big payout at the end of when people turn 50.
Are you guaranteeing a big payout? Are you guaranteeing future results of the market, Mr. Bessent? Are you doing that? Are you promising people a rate of return? Wow, breaking news, everybody. Scott Bessent can tell the future.
59 or 60 for the first time, Joe, because as you know, bottom 50% of households in America do not have financial assets, and President Trump is giving them financial assets. I believe that the reason you all have the mess you are about to have in New York, Caracas on the Hudson, is because people have given up on a market-based system. And the Trump...
This is a Zoran Mamdani reference. They're going to try and make Mamdani the picture of communism. Yeah, Tom, where's the 1,000 coming from? Yes. Stock investments are not FDIC insured and can lose value, and in fact will over time, and then they'll go up and then they'll go down again. This is this is just the dumbest fucking thing, and the fact that we are required to pay for it. Yeah, we'll borrow more, which is why we need interest rates so low, so that we can borrow money at 0 interest rate. That's what he wants.
Administration is going to make every newborn
Yeah, they're gonna
a
invest in
shareholder, and they
cryptocurrency.
are going to have a stake in the system.
Oh
When
my
you have a
God.
stake in the system,
my
you do
God.
not want to bring down the system.
do it.
So the power of compounding could
Don't
mean
do
a
it.
big payout
Yep,
that
they
would be
do.
a complement, not a substitute for Social Security.
Oh yeah, that is horrifying.
really interesting.
It is, and it is horrifying to some. If you're not beholden to the government, it sort of undercuts a lot of one side's programs, doesn't it?
Bitch, you are beholden to the government with these accounts, you stupid fucking cuck. Fuck you, Joe Squawk Box, bitch. Oh, well, if those newborns' parents aren't citizens, they're gone already. We're gonna kick them out. The 1,000 contribution originates from the federal government, though yeah, exactly. You're doing the investing. You're completely controlling it. You're completely controlling it. And I'm going to guarantee that you're going to do a shitty job of it. No, this is not the guy that gave him a black eye. I think that was Sean Duffy or something, right? I don't know.
If you're, yeah,
Allegedly.
that's horrifying. The Secretary.
Well, you know, Joe. The other thing too is, I got to say, some of the senators who criticize me are the ones who take the most advantage of. They don't have insider trading rules. So
Okay.
Senator White.
Shut up. Shut the fuck up, you fucking shut the fuck up, you Nazi bitch. You fucking Nazi. Whoever the financial guy was in the Nazi regime, it's him. I'll tell you that right now. Oh wait, this is the one I wanted. I wanted this one, not that one. I wanted this one. Here we go. This is from Lee. I wanted to go over this. It has to do with what we're talking about. Oh my god. Yeah, anyway, so that's Beasley. These humans definitely make me sad. Yeah. ICE offering a 50K sign-on bonus for jobs and student loan forgiveness too. That's right, Badger, Tom. Yeah. Yeah. So bad. It's so bad. It's all so bad. Okay. Let's talk about this. And we're going to talk to Lee. Tomorrow, Lee is hopefully still going to have some time to talk with us on our Puff Puff Pass on Fridays. So don't. Yeah, I should actually. I haven't done that in a minute.
Shut up, Lolo.
Shut up, Lolo.
Shut up, Lolo.
Shut up. Just shut up.
Lolo. Shut up.
I agree. I think I was actually talking in the background there too. Hey, let's see. For most taxpayers, Roth IRAs and 529 accounts are likely the better options because they offer much better tax savings and higher contribution limits. And you get to decide what to invest them in. That's right. So you can put them in a money market. These guys are going to invest them for you. That's right. In a U.S. stock fund index. U.S. stock fund index. All right. So only U.S. stocks. No foreign stocks, even if they go crazy. Wow. Oh, you know what? We should all get jobs to run detention facilities and then let everybody out. What if we do that? I think that's a great idea. Don't be prepared. No, please don't be prepared. Let's just have a shitty conversation about it, Lee. You do not need to prepare for this. If you do any extra work for this, I'm going to be so mad because I just want to shoot the shit with you. That's all this is. We're just going to shoot the shit. But here, Lee shares some information. White House X-ray. Trump's 50% copper tariff crashed futures 19.5% on July 30th. That was yesterday. While Chile's Codelco, his admin's number one refined copper supplier, praised the positive policy exclusion. Mining giants sank 10%, but foreign refiners secured permanent U.S. market dominance through the 60% import loophole, which is what, a quota? Is that a quota? The same day copper futures collapsed, Trump mandated 25% of U.S. copper scrap stay domestic. Yeah, we're going to give all kinds of disclaimers. We're basically two very high ladies, and we're talking shit. Okay, so just get ready. It's two old ladies talking, not that you're old. It's two broads talking shit on the internet. That's what we're going to call our show, Lee. I'm going to make that t-shirt. Two broads talking shit on the internet. Let's see. The same day futures mandated flooding markets with cheap recycled material that undercuts miners. Exactly. This policy cocktail emerged after industry lobbying secured refined copper exemptions. I don't understand all of this, but I'm sure I will eventually. Protecting traders who donated $4.7 million to Republican National Committee in Q2 2020. Oh, this quarter? Oh my God. Codelco's, which is again in Chile, U.S. cathode shipments surged 38% post announcement. When national security tariffs align perfectly with donor interests and foreign dominance, it's not policy, it's a racket. Oh, we're definitely going to have to talk that one through so that I understand. I'm not sure I understand that. I wonder which people connected to Trump made money on this. This is I wonder if they're going to let me read this. Probably not. Probably not, because they don't like me. Really? You didn't link it, Bloomberg? Come on. Oh, it's a picture. Sorry. I'm so stupid. Thanks, Ron. All right, I'll find that. But we're going to talk a little bit about metal tomorrow. We're going to talk about heavy metal tomorrow. Let me see. Oh, I do have other things, but there's just so many things. Oh, the one thing too I want to talk about. Federal data has been disappearing under dump. This is Marketplace. I don't know, some money website. This is July 28th. There's been a targeted surgical removal of data sets or elements of data sets that are not aligned with the administration's priorities, said Denise Ross at the Federation of American Scientists. This is importante because this is importante, muy importante. Yeah. Government data is at risk. Federal funding for the main statistical agencies like the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Commerce Department has been tight for years, but since Dump took office, threats to the availability and comprehensiveness of federal data have reached a new level, impacting everything from national health and crime to key economic reports. Last September, Drew DeSilver, an analyst at the Pew Research Center, clicked onto the Office of Personnel Management's FedScope database to find out what percentage of the federal workforce was Black or Latino. He published the findings earlier this year. After the Dump administration took office, he checked the database again and got a rude awakening. The diversity module, which included all the racial and ethnic breakdowns, that has disappeared, DeSilver said. That, combined with the fact that the database hasn't been updated since the administration took office, the latest data is for September 2024, makes it more difficult to figure out how massive federal job cuts initiated by Doggy are impacting Black and Latino workers. Denise Ross, who served until December 2024 as U.S. Chief Data Scientist, said this is part of a broad pattern across federal statistical agencies, the targeted, as I just read. Ross is now at the Federation of American Scientists and has been tracking these changes. Her current projects to monitor and advocate for federal data under the Dump administration are America's Data Index and America's Essential Data. Ooh, I want to look at those. There's so many things, and then I want to look at that too. Whoa. Federal data sets. Oh, this is really cool. People often take infrastructure. The goal of America's Essential Data is to make it easier for advocates and other storytellers to convey. Neato. Do you use a federal data set that delivers important benefits? Help us tell the story of that data set. What a good website. Okay. She offered multiple examples of databases that have been altered or taken down entirely. The OPM, Office of Personnel Management, in the race and ethnicity category has been removed in response to the president's agenda on removals of DEI. NOAA's billion-dollar disaster data set has been terminated because it's talking about climate. CDC's National Notifiable Diseases Surveillance System removing questions related to sexual orientation and gender identity. And that'll make it harder to understand how diseases are impacting these populations. Oh, you're totally young. Are you kidding me? You're not old. You're not an old lady. Two old ladies talking shit on the internet. I'll buy that shirt. You're close enough. Let's see. Oh my God. Steve Pearson, Director of Science Policy at the American Statistical Association, cited another example in the same vein. Sexual orientation or gender identity answer options have been removed from the National Crime Victimization Survey, which comes out of the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Ross and her colleagues have been documenting the trend. Since January 20th, we've identified over 400 changes to federal forms and surveys, specifically to comply with administration priorities such as erasing gender identity and DEI. There's another way federal data is being undermined, said Steve Pearson. Across-the-board job cuts initiated by Doggy starting at the beginning, which Pearson estimates led to 15 to 40% staff attrition at some statistical agencies. The biggest impact so far has been the reductions of force, which are collateral damage. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. This combined with funding cuts is starting to impact core economic data like the Bureau of Labor Statistics Consumer Price Index, which we just read about. We've seen the government do less field surveys to come up with the official measure of consumer price inflation, and that's just because they don't have adequate funding. If the government slightly mismeasures consumer price inflation, that can mean spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Social Security payments that it shouldn't be spending. I don't even understand what that means. Strain said maintaining the quality and integrity of federal economic data is something that I'm very concerned about, blah, blah, blah. In an emailed statement, a spokesperson for the Bureau of Labor Statistics said the agency, quote, remains committed to providing the public with accurate and timely data. BLS supplements direct data collection with various alternative data sources, including purchase data files, crowdsourced data, and administrative records. What? And that despite current challenges, BLS remains confident, blah, blah, blah. Former BLS Commissioner Erica Grosjean, who is now a senior economic advisor at the Cornell ILR School, said the agency so far has maintained the integrity of most of its important economic reports, for instance, blah, blah, blah. They're trying to preserve the quality of the headline numbers that drive monetary policy, appear in long-term contracts, while adjusting to having real staffing and resource issues. These changes are intended to preserve the integrity of the top-line number at the expense of some of the granularity that was available before. Really? I'd be curious to know how much AI is involved in some of the economic reporting now. I'd really be curious to know. Grosjean predicted that in the face of ongoing cuts, BLS faces an 8% nominal funding reduction under the Big Ugly Bill. The agency might eventually have to stop publishing some of its other reports. She said those most likely to be scaled back or canceled include the American Time Use Survey, National Longitudinal Studies, Occupational Injuries and Illnesses, and even JOLTS, which is Job Openings and Labor Turnover Survey, because the information is a little bit aged when it comes out. That's disturbing. That should be very disturbing to people. I'm going to read this in preparation for tomorrow, so no need to worry about that. Let me see what else I've got. La 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 la. There's a story about the nickel from 2022 that I wanted to share with you. La la la. That's the copper. Oh, this was dropped in Discord. Paul Krugman. I'm going to do that, but I want to. Oh, here we go. This is only 8 minutes. This is what Lee was talking about. This is Mr. Global. I just subscribed. And this is what he said. I think this is what you're talking about in terms of the energy deal. I might have the wrong video, so forgive me, but this looks like it might be interesting. About 9 minutes. Here we go.
Hey, folks. Welcome back to the Mr. Global channel. Today, we're going to talk about Donald Trump's trade deals, and specifically just the energy portion of the trade deals, because that is my wheelhouse. I'm an energy expert. Before we get started on that, please like and subscribe. Thank you all so much to my new followers for your support. So a few days ago, Donald Trump announced a trade deal with the
Get
EU
16 more
where they
viewers
agreed
in
to
here.
purchase $750 billion
Why do I
worth
do
of energy
this?
from us over a period of 3 years. Now, keep in mind, prior to that, he announced a trade deal with Japan where they are going to purchase $550 billion worth of energy from us over an unspecified period of time. I think it's very important to note that we have, I believe, 56 more trade deals to make. They were talking about 60 trade deals in 60 days. They've made 3 or 4. So, there's a lot of trade deals left. Now, the issue I have with the energy part of the trade deals is just in the 2 trade deals with the EU and Japan, according to Donald Trump, the amount of energy they have agreed to buy from us is more than we export. Yeah. So, we export a little over $300 billion a year in energy. That's liquefied natural gas, oil, refined fuels, some electricity, but that won't apply. With these 2 trade deals, that exceeds the total amount of our annual exports already. If you consider that the EU would be buying $250 billion worth of energy from us, and we currently export just over $300 billion, just that deal alone takes up the vast majority of all the energy we sell. And we can't honor our agreement with the EU and honor our agreement with Japan. And keep in mind, there's other big trade agreements coming.
China, India.
With specifically India, where it concerns energy. It is in our national security interest to sell oil to India so they are not buying it from Russia. So that's a big one. The trade deal with India, from the energy perspective, is much more important than the trade deal with, say, Japan from an energy perspective, because they won't buy energy from Russia. But India will. India does. But we can prevent that from happening. In addition, we have South Korea, huge energy trading partner that we sell energy to. And of course, Canada. We buy a lot of energy from Canada. We sell a lot of energy. There's many other countries that we sell a lot of energy products to. And just on these first 2 trade deals, Donald Trump has sold more than all of our energy products.
Oops.
So
can we
it sounds
more?
Great, but what this means is ignore the energy part.
Yeah.
You can decide what to do with the rest of it, but ignore the energy part. We're never going to sell $750 billion worth of energy to the EU. It's just not a thing that's going to happen. And we're also not going to sell $550 billion worth of energy to Japan. That's not a thing that's ever going to happen. Now, here's another thing about these trade deals that concerns energy, right? We already sell 100% of the energy we export. Like, we have no problem exporting energy and selling it to whoever wants it. I don't quite understand why we're making trade deals selling energy to different countries if it's not within what is in our best interest as a nation. Does that make sense? And the deal with India, strategically, is a very important deal, but it's not that significant that we sell $750 billion of energy to the EU. We already ship them half of our LNG and a significant amount of oil.
Really?
And we will continue to ship them, and we could even ship them more. But to come out and say $750 billion is just a ridiculous, it's a ridiculous number. It's a ridiculous notion that we could do it. It's a ridiculous notion that they would buy it. Selling energy to South Korea is very important because they have historically bought energy from Iran, right? So it's important, strategically as a country that we sell energy to South Korea.
Oh, J-Ran,
they're our ally.
Sweetie.
They have purchased energy from countries that are not our ally and that support terrorism. So that's a good thing, right? What all of this presents to me, the way it appears to me, if Donald Trump thinks this stuff is actually going to happen, is that he truly has no understanding of global energy supply, logistics, the needs of different allies, and most importantly, the strategic value to who our trading partners is, especially when it comes to energy. Yeah. And trust me, I recognize that it's entirely possible that he fully understands all of this and just comes up with these huge numbers so people will be impressed by it, because
that's probably
let's
true.
be honest, the vast majority of people don't have an understanding of how trading energy around the world works. They don't understand the geopolitical implications of it. There's a lot that goes into this that's very important. So for him to just come out and say, hey, we're going to sell $750 billion worth of energy to EU, that sounds great to a lot of people, mostly his supporters, even probably people that aren't big supporters. But that's because they don't understand how energy works. So, yeah, it is quite possible that he is fully aware.
Yeah, I'm going to stop him there. He is fully aware. And the reason I think he's fully aware is because if he wasn't, there would be people in his administration trying to stop him. So I think we always have to ask ourselves, with all of the things that come out of the administration, if no one within his camp is trying to stop him, and I mean the people who have leverage on him, there are people who have leverage on him. He is not the kingpin. He owes, people have spent money to get him where he is and put Trump in power. Yeah, exactly. Oh, really? Alabama's trying to expand the death penalty? Oh, wow. If the thing that keeps me up at night is if no one is saying to him or saying or finding a way to dismantle what it is he actually is doing or what the administration is doing to this economy, to our future. If none of the donor class is finding a way to stop him, you can't tell me that they're just like, I think they could shut him up. I think for some reason, butterflies, this must work for them, right? I'm always looking at, okay, so how would something like this, trade situation, how would that benefit corporations? Well, corporations are getting a lot of tax breaks for supporting it, right? I don't know. I don't think I've met a lot of, I've actually met a few CEOs of actual corporations. They don't strike me as the kind of people who go on trust, right? They don't run their companies or other things based on trusting an executive, trusting the president. I just don't, that doesn't make sense to me. Because that's not the way they make any decisions, at least as far as I've witnessed. Their decisions are data driven and, but there can be like weird rogue CEOs, but I'm going to tell you, they've got boards of directors, they've got shareholders they're responsible to. That's why I don't quite understand There's something in that. There's something to the fact that the billionaires, and I know it means that they get rich, but I'm really wondering, I want to get down to the granular in terms of, so how do you, CEO, who now have all these costs and everything that you didn't factor in to your business planning, how are you must have something in your back pocket, right? And one question I would have for Mr. Global, yeah, exactly. Companies that are not publicly traded in the US are trying to stay under the radar. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Depends on the benefit. Yeah, totally butterflies, totally. And I think it's not just across the board, right? CEOs across the board don't get the same benefit from this type of policy. So I understand that. That makes a lot of sense. No, absolutely. It makes a lot of sense what you said. My question is, what do they see that we don't? Or is it truly just a wait and see kind of attitude, like do as much as you can planning wise and just hope it blows over? I mean, that doesn't sound like a CEO to me. I don't think I've ever met a CEO who would be satisfied with that position. And I'm not sure what, obviously there's probably some kind of push and pull behind the scenes. I don't know if Mrs. Beasley has to take a lot of calls from CEOs, saying, what the fuck are you guys doing? I don't know. Maybe not. Um, I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what kind of happens. Yeah. Ugh. All right. Well, we're coming up on 3 hours. I'm going to go ahead and end it here, although we've got so much more we could do. God, it's just constant. I'm constantly left with stuff I want to get to. But yeah. So tomorrow morning, we have the amazing Lee and other stuff. In fact, I'll save some of the stuff I've got that I didn't get to today for tomorrow morning, so we'll have some time to talk. Oof, man, it's like climbing up it's duck and cover. It's like climbing up a hill that is full of mud, and like you're just putting your hands in the mud, and the minute you think you get up the hill a little bit and maybe understand a concept, you slide back down. That's what I feel like. And it is a fire hose of information. And of course, here's the thing, Lee. One of the things I keep reminding myself is that you can, as somebody who is not an expert on economics or other things, I can't just take things at face value, right? Like, this is what you can't just take this stuff at face value and say, oh, well, that must be good. Oh, that must be bad. There's always like these multiple factors to everything. It's fascinating to me. I mean, it's just what a time to be alive. No. Bit of good news. Rumor that Hegseth is thinking of stepping down to save face. But bad news, he may run for governor in Tennessee. Gosh, do you really think he'd win, though? God, oh man. I guess that's the minute I said it, it's kind of dumb. Yeah, me either. I'm like, well, I'm just available. So, anyway, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you for spending time with me this morning. I will, I know it's like crowdsourcing understanding. I know it's just so beautiful. Thank you so much for being part of this community. I'm so grateful. I got stuck on the Scarborough Bluffs drunk as a 12-year-old skunk. That was 1,000 years ago. Badger, I don't know where that came from, but I'm here for it. All right, my loves. Have a great rest of your Thursday. I will see you tomorrow morning. Remember, we start a little bit later tomorrow morning so that Mama can sleep in a little bit. Yes, Lee, there is a lot of complexity in trade economics and the entire global commerce system, but fascinating. I am so willing to dive into it. I am so willing to dive into it. Let's dive, baby. All right. Bye, guys. I will see you. I'm so glad you guys enjoy some of this. I know sometimes it gets really deep in the weeds, and for that I apologize that I take you into the weeds with me. But I definitely appreciate you being here today, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning.